The girl woke up with a start. A chill ran over her body and she thought she must have slept on the ground. She looked around and realized something about the surroundings felt wrong. She had fallen asleep while reading a novel. Was this a dream? When she tried to move, a sharp wave of pain hit her. Her legs were covered in dense, ugly wounds. Just as she was about to check her injuries, two fallen females entered through the cave opening. Seeing Lu Ling sitting there unharmed, they mocked her for faking a faint, saying it was clearly a trick to catch Lord Shermeng's interest. Those eyes of hers, they said, were the key to bewitching males. This female truly deserved death. Yet from the servant's words, Lu Ling picked up crucial information. Shermeng, Lu Ling, and even this very scene, including the clothes she was wearing, matched the novel she had just been reading perfectly. She had transmigrated into the body of a short-lived green tea younger sister. Suddenly, one of the females snapped her out of her thoughts. She warned Lu Ling that if she dared set her sights on Lord Shermeng again, she should watch those pretty legs of hers. Lu Ling was completely dazed. As a newcomer, keeping her head down was the safest choice. Pretending to be frightened, she turned to leave, only to bump straight into a male's chest. Shermeng took it as an attempt to throw herself at him, sneering that she was already beaten to this state and still trying to lean into him. "Since you're pushing yourself onto me," he said, "why don't I satisfy your wish right now?" As he pulled her tightly into his arms. Lu Ling had no such intention, but no matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't break free. She could only cry out for help in panic. Thunder roared as several bolts of lightning circled above the cave. They immediately sensed that this surge of power came from a level 4 warrior. Lord Shermeng felt an overwhelming pressure and didn't dare act carelessly, throwing Lu Ling aside at once. Sitting on the ground, Lu Ling felt utterly wronged. People in this primitive age were far too rough, and did they even know what romance was? At that moment, the level 4 warrior Xiying was already standing at the cave entrance. He coldly addressed Shermeng, saying he had come to reclaim his female partner, Lu Ling, and was taking her away now. "If you dare to stop me, you'd better think carefully about the consequences." Shermeng weighed it over and decided that a mutual loss was not a wise choice. Xiying pulled Lu Ling into his arms, telling her not to move. She was still injured. Faced with his handsome features, Lu Ling could only obey. Watching them leave, Shermeng swallowed his rage and secretly swore that next time he would never let them go so easily. The two of them dashed away at full speed. Lu Ling stared straight at Xiying, the male lead of the novel, finding him both domineering and handsome. Before long, they returned to Xiying's cave. He placed Lu Ling onto a stone bed. Then he laid down a thick layer of animal pelts. After settling her in, he bent down to examine the wounds on her legs. All the while, he scolded her for not behaving herself. "Acting beyond your limits again. You couldn't even beat that lioness just now." He dipped his finger in some herbal paste and smeared it directly onto the wound. The pain made Lu Ling cry out loudly. Xiying gently blew on the wound a few times and was about to check the injury on her other leg. But a ridiculous thought crossed Lu Ling's mind and she blurted out, "You can't take advantage of me just because I'm hurt." Xiying leaned down and said quietly, "You're the female I chose. What reason do you have to refuse me?" Lu Ling was just about to explain why she had gone to see Shermeng, when Xiying's jealousy flared up. "If I hear the name Shermeng come out of your mouth again, I'll have no choice but to make you keep quiet." Lu Ling wanted to finish her explanation and clear the misunderstanding, but Xiying had already leaned in, silencing her in his own way. Lu Ling felt as if she had completely lost her composure. Her heart was racing at what felt like 120 miles per hour. After that, Xiying straightened up and warned her again. Lu Ling obediently nodded and replied, "Yes, husband." Unexpectedly, the sudden appearance of the young chief interrupted their intimate moment. This dorky little boy had been born with 2 teeth and, despite his clumsy speech, served as a messenger. He rushed into Lord Xiying's cave, reporting that the young chief had been poisoned and urging him to hurry over. Hearing this, Xiying immediately prepared to leave. But he suddenly stopped. Turning back to Lu Ling, he said, "If you dare go looking for Shermeng again, I'll make sure you suffer." He casually tossed a packet of herbs into her hands and added coldly, "As for you going to see Shermeng, we'll settle that properly when I get back." At this point, Lu Ling was the only one left in the cave and she began recalling the plot of the novel. The story had long dominated the top 3 rankings and the male lead, Xiying, had become the new husband of countless girls. A classic modern domineering Xiao type, yet unwaveringly loyal in love. As for the role she had transmigrated into, Lu Ling was originally Shi Ying's first fiancé. But she had only pretended to be his partner to scam his divine medicine and food, while secretly being involved with other males. While Shi Ying was hibernating, she fled to another tribe, was soon cast out and died on the spot. That betrayal left Shi Ying deeply scarred, unable to overcome the wound of being deceived by the one he loved for the rest of his life. The transmigrated Lu Ling silently swore that in this life, she would truly love Shi Ying. Left alone in the cave, Lu Ling had to tend to her injuries by herself. Without any painkillers, the pain made her grimace. Suddenly, an adorable little creature appeared out of thin air and spoke, "I am your transmigration system, Xiaodu." Seeing System Xiaodu, Lu Ling finally realized that transmigration really did come with a system. She cautiously asked Xiaodu if there was any way to relieve the pain. Xiaodu emitted a series of rapid search beeps. It soon discovered that the herb pouch Shi Ying had given her contained pain-relieving herbs. Lu Ling looked at the pouch in disbelief and opened it to find a bundle of vividly colored plants. These were the pain relief herbs. Apply them to the wound for 1 minute to ease the pain. She even praised Xiaodu, saying it was amazing. However, Xiaodu regretfully told Lu Ling that this function could only be used once per day. Before it could finish speaking, Shi Ying hurried back into the cave. Lu Ling asked anxiously whether the young chief's poisoning had been dealt with. Shi Ying replied that the young chief had been poisoned with boar venom and needed immediate detoxification. Otherwise, he wouldn't live long. Worried that Xiaodu might be exposed, Lu Ling kept shielding it with her hands. Shi Ying reached for the herb pouch, saying that he wasn't sure how to detoxify it either, and that all they could do now was treat a dead horse like a living one. At that moment, Xiaodu suddenly popped out and told Lu Ling that the purple-flowered herb in the pouch could neutralize the poison. Lu Ling quickly pulled Xiaodu back, panic rising. How would she explain it if he were discovered? Xiaodu told her that only she could see its existence. Lu Ling then stopped Shi Ying as he was about to leave, claiming she knew which herb could save the young chief. Shi Ying asked skeptically, "Do you have any medical experience?" Lu Ling found the detoxifying herb in the pouch and handed it to Shi Ying. The little boy with 2 teeth nearby asked worriedly if it would really work. The young chief's life concerned the entire tribe, and this was no joke. Lu Ling answered firmly that it would definitely neutralize the poison. As soon as she finished speaking, Shi Ying pulled her into his arms. In a gentle voice, he said he trusted her and would bear any consequences himself. A man was fed a bowl of golden broth. His biological father expressed endless gratitude. Lord Shi Ying did not accept the thanks, stating that the antidote had been provided by Lu Ling. Lu Ling hurriedly replied that there was no need for formalities. She was only doing her duty as a member of the tribe. At that moment, 3 women walked over and shouted at Lu Ling, asking since when she had such abilities. Aside from running around looking for males, what else could she even do? The words made Lu Ling feel deeply wronged. She had clearly done a good deed, yet was insulted instead. However, the tribe chief kicked the woman who spoke straight out. Shi Ying's fiancé is not someone you're allowed to gossip about. Get over there and apologize. Now. The woman could only mutter an unwilling apology to Lu Ling. Knowing how terrible the original owner's reputation had been, Lu Ling didn't want any more bad talk, so she said it was fine as long as it didn't happen again. Hearing that, the chief immediately dragged the woman away, afraid she might offend Lord Shi Ying again and spell disaster. After they left, Lu Ling patted her chest and took a deep breath. Shi Ying then said to her that the woman's words had been far too harsh. "You could have lost your temper like before. And no matter what you do, I'll support you." Lu Ling felt Shi Ying's genuine affection and couldn't help feeling regret for how the original owner had failed to cherish it. Lost in thought, Lu Ling was asked by Shi Ying, "What are you thinking about, baby?" Couples in love always seem to ask that. "How many good sisters do you have?" "No, wait. What do you even like about me? I'm so hot-tempered and childish." Shi Ying paused, momentarily dazed. Then he replied, "Does loving someone really need a reason?" Lu Ling could only think that the male lead's love was incredibly pure. Then Shi Ying recalled the past and spoke slowly, saying that long ago he had felt something strange. They had grown up together since childhood. Lu Ling had been like a little son, caring for everyone around her. Whenever he was bullied, she would always appear to help him. She often comforted him and encouraged him as well. From that moment on, he swore to keep that warmth forever in his heart. But later, after the tribe's priest went missing, she seemed to become a completely different person. She mocked him coldly every day and often went out with other males. He could feel that she was no longer the Lu Ling he had known. After hearing all this, Lu Ling found nothing she could argue back and could only promise to behave herself from now on. She also swore to take her life seriously from this point forward. She vowed to erase the bad impression the original owner had left on the tribe and thanked Shi Ying for his long-standing tolerance. Looking at Lu Ling before him, Shi Ying felt that the familiar fiancé had finally returned. Overcome with emotion, he pulled her tightly into his arms, afraid she might turn back into her former self. At that moment, the young chief who had drunk the antidote soup regained consciousness. Everyone keeping watch nearby felt relieved and delighted. The young chief hurriedly asked who had detoxified the boar venom for him. Nervously, Two Teeth said, "Young chief, please promise not to get angry. It was Lu Ling who saved you." Hearing this, the young chief was utterly shocked. How could she possibly know the method to detoxify? What trick was this woman trying to pull now to win his favor? With that thought, he moved to confront Lu Ling. This woman had pursued a total of 25 males outside. One of those males had even tracked her down to her home. In front of his partner, he exposed her on the spot and warned him not to be fooled by her beauty. Lu Ling thought that since she had saved his life, he had come to thank her. Instead, the moment he woke up, he rushed over to insult her character, even snapping, "Young chief, did the herbs burn your brain?" The young chief roared angrily at Lu Ling, "Stop playing dumb. You tried again and again to become my woman before. Saving me this time, what scheme are you plotting now?" Lu Ling suddenly smacked her forehead, remembering everything. The original owner really had shown undue attentiveness toward the young chief, and now Lu Ling had no choice but to take the blame. But the young chief kept pressing, demanding, "I don't believe you'd save me out of kindness. Say it. What's your real motive?" Just then, Shi Ying stepped in front of Lu Ling and said coldly, "Yelling at my fiancé in my own cave. Are you saying I don't matter at all?" He then turned to Lu Ling, "You'd better give me a flawless explanation for what the young chief just said. I want to know what makes him better than me. Why you had to spread your attention." At that moment, Lu Ling could practically smell the sour sting of jealousy. She reminded herself that she had to find an excuse to clearly separate herself from the original owner's past, or one day she would be ruined by it. Lu Ling stammered, "Actually, maybe it was because I couldn't see clearly before and my head was messed up. I must have short-circuited to chase after you. Now I'm better and I only want to prepare supplies for the winter." Hearing this, the young chief sneered. "Preparing winter supplies? That's a joke. Chasing males, that's what you're really good at." Lu Ling wasn't provoked by the remarks. She kept smiling and said that she truly only wanted to gather food for the tribe's winter, though the young chief still didn't believe her. Shi Ying, however, fully trusted his partner Lu Ling and even promised that from now on he would never entangle himself with the young chief again, telling him to put his mind at ease. At that moment, the young chief saw determination in Lu Ling's eyes, yet a strange, unexplainable feeling surfaced in his heart. He quickly dismissed it, thinking it was impossible for him to like a woman like her. With that, the matter finally came to an end and Shi Ying gently pulled Lu Ling onto his lap. Lu Ling asked Shi Ying what good news had made him so happy. Shi Ying clung to her like sticky rice cake and told her not to worry. He said he would help her solve the problem of winter food supplies. Lu Ling, however, wanted to handle it herself, so she could silence the gossip. She suddenly remembered that the novel's true female lead would appear in 60 days. When that time came, Shi Ying would be with her. So what would happen to Lu Ling then? If she no longer acted recklessly like the original owner, and wasn't executed by the tribe, could she keep Shi Ying by her side? Thinking this through, Lu Ling felt much lighter and urged Shi Ying to take her into the mountains as soon as possible, to gather food and become useful to the tribe, securing her own survival. Taking advantage of the moonlight, the two of them headed deep into the mountains. Shi Ying stayed alert at all times, ready for any sudden danger. At the same time, he couldn't help scolding Lu Ling for entering the mountains so late at night. This place was full of potential dangers. Lu Ling smiled and said, "Aren't you here to protect me? How could anything happen?" Shi Ying hadn't expected her to think so highly of him. This girl had come into the mountains with her partner late at night, trusting him enough to put her life in his hands. Lu Ling then summoned her system Xiao Du, asking it to help locate edible supplies. After a series of rapid beeping sounds, Xiaodu detected plenty of food and medicinal plants nearby and excitedly pointed them out to her. Following the locations Xiaodu indicated, Lu Ling called Xing over and went with him to collect them. Suddenly, an unknown creature emerged from the grass. Seeing this, Xing shouted, "Baby, watch out." He lunged forward and wrapped Lu Ling tightly in his arms. The two of them rolled across the ground for hundreds of feet, finally stopping after crashing into a pile of rocks. After getting up, Lu Ling anxiously asked Xing if he was hurt. Gritting his teeth, Xing said he was strong and wouldn't be injured so easily. Lu Ling told him not to put on a tough front. If he felt unwell, he should say so. Xing felt her genuine concern and told her not to worry, even joking that he wouldn't mind getting hurt if it meant she'd take care of him. "But protecting you is my responsibility," he said. "Even death won't change that." The warmth between them made the air seem to heat up, and naturally the two held each other tightly. After that brief moment of warmth, Lu Ling felt that Xing was really being far too proactive. Xing, however, took her earlier look as permission to take things a step further. Lu Ling immediately cried out, "I'm innocent, Aunt Rong." Xing went on to say, "If you don't want there to be a next time, then don't look at me with eyes full of suggestion. Otherwise, I won't be able to control myself." Only then did Lu Ling realize just how good Xing was at flirting. Lost in their budding romance, neither of them noticed that a female who admired Xing was hiding behind a nearby tree, watching everything. She was so jealous she practically wanted to tear Lu Ling apart. At that moment, Lu Ling arrived at an area covered in medicinal herbs. Xing suddenly hugged her from behind, saying that these plants smelled bad and would only get them laughed at if they brought them back. As he spoke, he was about to carry Lu Ling away to a place rich in food. Lu Ling hurriedly told him to put her down. "I'm gathering medicine, not food." Xing froze. His grip slipped and he almost dropped her. He quickly apologized, saying he didn't have much experience holding girls. Lu Ling couldn't help thinking that Xing was truly an innocent sweetheart. Her heart started pounding, her face flushing without her noticing, and she nearly forgot all about gathering herbs. She then explained to Xing that this herb was extremely useful and worked well for treating fever and sneezing among the tribe. Suddenly, the low roar of a big cat echoed nearby. Xing immediately shielded Lu Ling and told her not to make a sound that will just slip away quietly. No need to disturb them while they recontributing to the forest. Early the next morning, Lu Ling and the others began sorting the medicinal herbs they had gathered. The low efficiency of using knives made her think of how useful metal tools would be. She also remembered that this was a communal system. Everyone ate from the same pot, with resources centrally managed and evenly distributed. So how were the things she personally worked to gather supposed to be counted? Just then Two Teeth came running in, panting. He said the young chief told them to hurry up and collect this month's food rations. After that, Xing and Lu Ling went to the food distribution area together. The young chief handed Xing the share allotted to a level 4 warrior. But Lu Ling was given only 4 apples and a few pieces of fruit. Lu Ling was speechless. "That's it. Are you sure this isn't just feeding mosquitoes?" At the same time, she thought that maybe she should join the gathering teams to give back to the tribe. Unexpectedly, a female walked over and sneered at Lu Ling, saying she was useless at everything and never left food behind. So why did she suddenly want to work? Was there another male in the gathering team she had her eye on? Lu Ling ignored her completely, still thinking about how unfair the food distribution was. Seeing her downcast, Xing handed over his own share of food. Lu Ling felt embarrassed. She hadn't done anything yet and didn't feel right taking so much. Seeing that no one paid her any attention, the female who now grew even more annoyed. She thought to herself that if hanging around males meant living without effort, then she could spread her favors evenly too, and she wrapped her arm around the young chief's. The young chief disliked being touched and immediately pulled his arm away. Huna sneered and said, "When you need me someday, don't come crying and begging. We'll see who dares help you then." At that moment, Lu Ling suddenly spoke up. "I want to join the gathering team and contribute my share to the tribe." Everyone was stunned. They felt those words couldn't possibly have come from Lu Ling. Even Chief Xiao thought it was strange. Lu Ling seemed like a completely different person today, nothing like her former self. After hesitating for a while, he finally agreed to let Lu Ling join the gathering team. The next morning came quickly. On the very first day of gathering, Lu Ling was late. Xing clung to her reluctantly, repeating all kinds of safety reminders. The more anxious Lu Ling became, the more Xi refused to let go. He even suggested that she could skip the gathering altogether, saying he was more than capable of supporting her. Lu Ling still insisted on her decision, determined to rely on herself to win over everyone in the tribe. Xi pulled her behind a large tree again, insisting on one more hug before letting her go. Left with no choice, Lu Ling gave in. After the hug, she finally rushed to rejoin the main group. As soon as she arrived at the gathering point, an elderly beastman scolded her harshly. "Do you have some kind of princess complex? Everyone's been waiting just for you." Knowing she was in the wrong, Lu Ling quickly lowered her head and apologized. Suddenly, a female beastman in a white dress approached Xi, wanting to speak to him privately. Xi, however, kept glancing at Lu Ling, worried she might suffer, while replying absent-mindedly, "Say what you need to say. Make it quick." Yang Su went straight to the point, confessing that she truly liked Xi and wanted to become his partner, saying their future offspring would surely be smart and handsome. Hearing this, Lu Ling finally realized someone was confessing to Xi, and she hesitated, unsure whether she should do something. Xi frowned and impatiently brushed Yang Su's hand away, but Yang Su shouted anxiously that Lu Ling was only playing with him and didn't truly like him at all. She continued, saying that Lu Ling had gone looking for others behind his back and asking whether Xi really knew what she had done. Lu Ling felt her heart churn violently at those words. Xi suddenly froze, standing motionless where he was. Seizing the moment, Yang Su quickly wrapped her arms around him, hoping he would reconsider becoming her partner. Just as Lu Ling saw this, someone else arrived and interrupted the scene. That person grabbed Lu Ling and pulled her toward the gathering site. With mixed emotions, Lu Ling said, "Yang Su is still there. Shouldn't we wait for her?" The female seemed prepared in advance and only quickened her pace. Glancing back, Lu Ling felt uneasy, wondering what choice Xi would make, and whether he would believe Yang Su's words. Even after reaching the gathering area, she remained distracted, afraid she would end up completely alone. She didn't even notice how many fruits had fallen to the ground. Her mind was filled with endless guesses and imagined outcomes. At that moment, Yang Su rushed back. Her expression was calm and unreadable, making it impossible for Lu Ling to tell whether she was happy or upset. Not knowing the answer made Lu Ling feel unbearably frustrated. She was so anxious that she almost went up to ask directly. Just then, Yang Su noticed many white mushrooms growing nearby and planned to pick them to add to dinner. Lu Ling suddenly shouted, "Wait! Those white mushrooms are poisonous. You can't eat them." But Yang Su and Lu Ling were rivals now. Naturally, Yang Su didn't believe her warning and mocked Lu Ling for pretending to know things she didn't. Lu Ling couldn't give a precise explanation. She couldn't exactly say she knew this from chemistry experiments. She could only describe the symptoms of eating those mushrooms: mild vomiting and diarrhea at first. A few days later, the condition would worsen and eventually lead to acute poisoning and death. Hearing this, another female beastman suddenly recalled a similar death in a neighboring tribe. The victim had eaten mushrooms picked by Yang Su. Yang Su, however, was convinced Lu Ling was making everything up out of jealousy over her confession to Xi. In a burst of anger, Yang Su shoved Lu Ling hard. Lu Ling hadn't realized there was a cliff right behind her and fell straight down. Her mind went blank. She thought this time she was truly finished and only hoped she could return to the real world after death. Yet at the spot where she was falling, a beastman happened to appear. Seizing the moment, he reached out and caught Lu Ling mid-fall. Lu Ling cautiously opened her eyes. She realized she was still alive. The male beastman in front of her spoke with obvious excitement. "So Mom was right. When spring comes and flowers bloom, a female really can fall from the sky." Lu Ling understood what he was excited about and quickly told him that she already had a partner. But the young beastman couldn't take his eyes off such a beautiful Lu Ling and earnestly asked, "Big sister, what should I do next? Teach me." Lu Ling cried out in her heart, "Heavens, you might as well have let me fall to my death. This is way too painful to deal with." She could only change the subject and explain how she had fallen down the cliff. After hearing the story, the young beastman became indignant, vowing to avenge her and promising that he would become a proper protector of beauties in the future. As he spoke, he stepped a little closer to Lu Ling, then suddenly remembered something his mother had once told him. Lu Ling silently pleaded, "Xi, please appear already." At this very moment, Xi was searching everywhere for the missing Lu Ling. The female from earlier was accusing Yang Su, saying she had pushed Lu Ling off the cliff. Yang Su begged desperately for the matter to be kept secret, saying she would surely be expelled from the tribe and left to fend for herself. Unfortunately for her, these words were overheard by Shi Ying, who asked coldly, "What secret are you trying to hide? What exactly did you do to Lu Ling?" The female immediately spoke up, saying Yang Su pushed Lu Ling down the mountain. "You'd better take people down there and check." Yang Su hurried forward, trying to stop the accusation, but it was already too late. Shi Ying seized Yang Su by the arm. He said furiously, "If anything happens to Lu Ling, you'll go with her." Unexpectedly, the moment Shi Ying left, Yang Su's expression twisted into something sinister. She sneered quietly, "Shi Ying, one day I'll make you kneel and beg me." Meanwhile, the young beastman who had saved Lu Ling continued pestering her. He claimed she was a mate bestowed by the heavens and insisted they get married immediately. Lu Ling stated clearly that she already had a partner. The young beastman didn't care at all, saying that in the beast world, one could have multiple male partners. Realizing there was no way to reason with him, Lu Ling turned around and prepared to return to the tribe. The young beastman then begged pitifully, asking her to take him along, saying he could look for another partner later. Hearing this, Lu Ling felt that he was still kind-hearted. After all, he had just saved her life, so she told him to remember what he had promised. The young beastman nodded happily on the surface, but deep down thought that as long as he stayed by Lu Ling's side, there would be chances. Lu Ling was just about to set off with the young beastman. At that moment, Shi Ying suddenly appeared. Seeing Lu Ling chatting and laughing with another male, he asked at once, "Lu Ling, who is this male?" When Lu Ling realized it was Shi Ying who had come for her, she was overjoyed and threw herself straight into his arms. Lu Ling said with a choking voice, "I thought I'd never see you again in this lifetime." Shi Ying gently held her close. "I'm just glad you're safe. Otherwise, I would have dragged Yang Su down there with you." By the way, who's this little beast cub? The young beastman immediately protested loudly, "I'm not a cub. I'm old enough to have a partner now, okay?" Lu Ling quickly explained that when she fell, it was him who caught her. Otherwise, she and Shi Ying might truly have been separated by life and death. She also added that she had already agreed to take him back to the tribe. Shi Ying refused without hesitation, that he could smell the strong mating scent coming off the young beastman and would never allow him to stay near Lu Ling. At the same time, the young beastman realized that Shi Ying was likely Lu Ling's partner. He immediately put on a pitiful expression. In a low voice, he said that if they didn't agree, it was fine. After all, the forest was full of fierce beasts, and Bao Fu could barely handle it, though he'd have to keep wandering with no place to call home. Shi Ying instantly saw through it. This was clearly a ploy to gain sympathy. Lu Ling, however, didn't think that far and insisted on bringing the young beastman back to the tribe. Not wanting to argue any longer, Shi Ying told her coldly, "Besides me, you won't have any other beastmen." With that, he picked Lu Ling up and sprinted away. The little leopard chased after them, shouting, "Sister!" But he tripped over some plants and fell to the ground. With tears streaming down his face, he cried out, asking her not to forget him and to come back to see him someday. Lu Ling turned back to look at the little leopard and couldn't help feeling sorry for him. At the same time, she could clearly sense how hostile Shi Ying was toward the young beastman. She softly begged Shi Ying to bring the little beast along with them. After all, he was the one who had saved her life. Not wanting Lu Ling to feel upset, Shi Ying finally agreed to her request, and even took the chance to steal a bit of affection from her. Lu Ling happily said to the young beastman, "Come back to the tribe with your big sister." Meanwhile, Shi Ying was already thinking about how to deal with the little leopard once they got back. The little leopard had thoughts of his own too. So long as he stayed by her side, he believed he would eventually steal her away completely. As soon as they returned to the gathering area in the tribe, a female spotted them. Without any warning, she rushed forward and tried to attack Lu Ling. Her reason was that Lu Ling had falsely accused Yang Su of picking poisonous mushrooms, driving Yang Su to the point of wanting to die. Shi Ying immediately grabbed the female by the wrist and said coldly, "You dare lay a hand on my partner? Are you asking to die?" Lu Ling spoke up at once. "What do you mean Yang Su wanted to die? She pushed me off a cliff and I haven't even settled that score yet. Now she's turning around and slandering me." As she spoke, everyone's gaze shifted to the poisoned beastman away. After the old shaman died, the antidote formula had been lost. Everyone was worried about Away, fearing he might not survive the day. Some beastmen began to analyze the situation and felt that Lu Ling might be telling the truth. Yang Su hurriedly defended herself, asking why nothing happened to everyone else who ate the food, and whether Awei had eaten something unclean beforehand. She then cried out dramatically, "Since you all believe Lu Ling, I might as well die and accompany Awei." The young chief quickly ordered people to chase Yang Su down and bring her back. He then turned anxiously to Lu Ling and asked, "Yang Su says you framed her. What exactly happened?" Suddenly, Xing stepped in front of Lu Ling, stating firmly that his partner would never do such a thing. However, the young chief felt that Yang Su wouldn't attempt to jump into the river without a reason. Meanwhile, Yang Su and her admirer continued their over-the-top performance, practically auditioning for an acting award. Lu Ling couldn't help but laugh softly to herself, thinking there were really a lot of petty people. Had she forgotten to wear red socks for good luck this year? She then noticed Awei on the ground beginning to babble incoherently and realized his time was running out. She also saw vomit on the ground with pieces of undigested mushrooms mixed in. Yang Su suddenly turned to Lu Ling and said, "Yes, we've had our conflicts, but I only wanted the tribe to eat better. Could you stop targeting me?" One of Yang Su's lackeys tried to show off in front of her and moved to strike Lu Ling. The little leopard stepped in just in time and blocked him. He turned to Lu Ling and asked, "Was it this ugly female who pushed you down?" Lu Ling nodded. "It was her." A flash of ferocity appeared in the little leopard's eyes. "Daring to bully my sister and frame her. Then you should all get a taste of a roller coaster ride," he said, about to strike the scheming female. Lu Ling quickly grabbed the little leopard and stopped him from going too far. The little leopard was confused. "She treated you like that. Why can't I teach her a lesson?" Lu Ling explained, "You just arrived in the tribe. If you hurt someone, you'll be expelled immediately." The little leopard felt it made sense, but secretly thought that if direct methods didn't work, he'd find a way to do it quietly. No matter what, he wouldn't leave his sister's side. At that moment, the young chief sensed the heavy killing intent coming from the little leopard, far stronger than that of ordinary beastmen in the tribe. Lu Ling stepped forward and told the young chief that she had not framed Yang Su. "If you don't trust me, I can prove it. Not only can I find the poison powder Awei ingested, I can also save his life." Shortly after, Xing brought over the lightly salted water as instructed. Lu Ling asked him to help lift Awei up. Taking advantage of the moment, Xing moved a little closer to Lu Ling. The little leopard immediately slipped between them, glaring at Xing with obvious jealousy. The two beastmen locked eyes, silently trying to overpower each other. Lu Ling told them both to stop messing around. Xing then quickly helped Awei sit upright. To keep the little leopard from causing trouble, Lu Ling sent him off to find a small wooden stick. With everything ready, Lu Ling prepared to induce vomiting and flush Awei's stomach. She could only hope that this treatment, unknown in the beast world, might turn the situation around. However, Yang Su continued to stir trouble, warning the young chief not to believe Lu Ling's nonsense. How could salt water possibly detoxify anything? What if she pretends to know what she's doing and ends up killing Awei? How will we explain that to his family? In truth, Yang Su was thinking that if Awei died by Lu Ling's hands, all the blame would fall on her. She didn't believe anyone except the priest could cure poison. Hearing this, Chief Shao also began to hesitate, unsure whether Lu Ling could really succeed. He instinctively wanted a clearer answer. Xing said calmly, "If Awei isn't treated, he'll die anyway. That we might as well let Lu Ling try." Lu Ling knew she only had shallow knowledge picked up from TV and couldn't guarantee 100% success. Still, she couldn't just stand by and watch Awei die, so she resolved to do everything she could. Xing held Lu Ling's hand and encouraged her, "Be brave. I'm your strongest support. If anything goes wrong, I'll take responsibility." The young chief waved his hand decisively, ordering Lu Ling to begin rescuing Awei at once. Using modern knowledge to induce vomiting and detoxify him. If it failed, she would bear the stigma of harming someone. Soon Lu Ling saw Awei vomiting heavily as the poisonous residue was expelled, and she realized the method was working. Moments later, Awei coughed a few times and slowly regained consciousness. Weakly he muttered, "I just saw lots of young girls dancing. Where did they all go?" Seeing that Awei was out of danger, Lu Ling reassured him, "If your stomach still feels uncomfortable, don't worry. Drink some warm water later and you'll gradually recover." The surrounding beast folk immediately crowded around Lu Ling in excitement. They praised her as being even more capable than the great shaman, saving the young chief and then reviving Awei, and some even wanted to idolize her. Suddenly, a beast woman begged Lu Ling to treat her mother, who had been coughing non-stop since catching a chill days ago. Lu Ling recognized it as a simple cold, and since she had gathered firewood and herbs earlier, she could brew medicine right away. After this incident, the tribe's attitude toward Lu Ling began to change, realizing they had wronged her before. Watching from the side, Yang Su was filled with resentment. What she wanted was for Lu Ling to mess up and get away killed, yet Lu Ling had become the tribe's rising star instead. Lu Ling then asked the young chief to examine the evidence that had just been vomited out. Pointing at the undigested mushrooms on the ground, she proved that she had not framed Yang Su. This also confirmed that the poisonous umbrella mushrooms were gathered by Yang Su and distributed to everyone. Faced with the evidence, the young chief was left speechless. Lu Ling continued, asking whether the young chief should now uphold justice. How should the matter of Yang Su pushing me off the cliff be handled? Yang Su, still guilty, tried to argue desperately, accusing Lu Ling of making false claims. At that moment, Xing stepped forward to testify for Lu Ling. Another beast woman also came forward, stating she had personally seen Yang Su push Lu Ling down. Yang Su had no choice but to admit what she had done, yet argued that since Lu Ling wasn't hurt, she should be spared this once. Suddenly, the little leopard stepped out and scolded Yang Su. If I hadn't caught my sister back then, she would have been shattered to pieces. The two sides confronted each other. Yang Su thought this random little leopard had no right to interfere, while the little leopard wanted to stand up for his sister. This time, the young chief saw the truth clearly and said sternly, "Stop arguing, Yang Su, don't you know exactly what you've done? I hereby announce that starting today, Yang Su will deliver 999 jin of food to the tribe every day for the next 10 years before this punishment is lifted. If you think this is unfair, you may complain to the chief, but don't be surprised if your punishment becomes even harsher." At that moment, all of Yang Su's fury was directed at Lu Ling, as if she could burn every strand of her hair to ashes. Lu Ling, on the other hand, seemed quite satisfied and turned away hand in hand with Xing. She glanced back with a mocking smile. "You pushed me off a cliff. This punishment is already mercy toward you, Yang Su." She left together with Xing and the little leopard. Behind them, Yang Su clenched her teeth, swearing that if she ever got the chance, she would take revenge on Lu Ling 100-fold. The young chief witnessed everything and sensed that this woman would not let the matter rest. Yet the little beastman following Lu Ling seemed to be on par with Xing in strength. So what exactly was the relationship between this wandering beastman and the little leopard? Had he really come to the tribe solely because of Lu Ling? A series of questions made it clear that the wandering beastman might be far from simple. Meanwhile, the little leopard clung to Lu Ling like a child, talking about spending the night outside. Living outdoors posed no problem for him. Even rain or wind would at worst give him a cold. "You should stay in the cave, sister. Bao Fu just doesn't want to be apart from you," he said. Lu Ling sighed helplessly and gently patted the little leopard's head. At that moment, Xing suddenly appeared, grabbing the little leopard by the neck with one hand. Lifting him into the air, Xing said coldly, "Stop chattering. If wandering beastmen couldn't survive in the wild, they'd be dead already. Don't pull these useless tricks on me," he added, casually tossing the little leopard aside. Xing warned Lu Ling again to keep her distance from other male beast folk, or he would really get jealous. Unfortunately, their intimate moment was interrupted by the arriving young chief. The young chief apologized awkwardly. "Sorry to interrupt you too." Xing frowned and said coldly, "You'd better have a real reason. Otherwise I'll send you off to gather 888 kinds of food." The young chief hurriedly explained, "I just wanted to ask Lu Ling something. It's purely a coincidence." "Really?" Lu Ling held Xing back and told him not to be so fierce. "I'll be right back after talking with the young chief." Xing thought to himself that this was the perfect chance to settle things with the little leopard. As Lu Ling walked away, she couldn't help feeling uneasy, sensing that Xing had ill intentions toward the little leopard and worrying they might clash. The young chief gently reassured her, "It'll be fine. Don't worry." However, Xing really did go looking for the little leopard. He warned him sternly, "Don't you dare touch Lu Ling again, or don't blame me if I don't hold back." The little leopard chuckled at, "You've been enjoying having her all to yourself, haven't you? Besides, sister has the right to have multiple partners. Who are you to stop me? Afraid I'll become her first partner and you'll have to call me brother?" Those words completely provoked Xing. His grip suddenly tightened as he seized the little leopard by the neck. Meanwhile, Lu Ling, walking with the young chief, asked, "So where exactly are you taking me?" The young chief replied, "This is the tribe's former ruins." Lu Ling looked puzzled. "Why bring me to the ruins?" As they walked, the young chief began recounting the disaster that once struck the tribe. At that time he had been severely injured and unconscious for over 100 days, cared for by Xiying. So many details might have escaped him. The tribe was suddenly attacked by wandering beastmen, and the old priest died in that catastrophe. A priest was the hope of a tribe. Only a priest could awaken ordinary beastfolk into warriors and truly make the tribe strong. The surviving beastfolk fled deep into the mountains and barely managed to settle here. Back then, Xiying sensed the enemy had not given up the pursuit and set up traps around the area. But no one expected them to poison the water source, reducing a tribe of over 1,000 to fewer than 100 survivors. Hearing this, Lu Ling was shaken. She recalled that this plot never appeared in the novel and asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" The young chief spoke bluntly. "The one you brought back is a wandering beastman that I don't know what his intentions are. If he dares to harm the tribe, I will not spare him. Tell me exactly how you met him and why you brought him back. Otherwise, even with Xiying backing you, I'll treat you as a traitor." Pressed step by step, Lu Ling accidentally slammed into a rock behind her, making a sharp noise. To their shock, a massive bear was hidden behind it. The young chief reacted instantly, hoisting Lu Ling onto his shoulder and fleeing. The bear roared furiously and chased after them. After running for a while, they ducked into a small cave to catch their breath. Lu Ling couldn't help complaining, "Did you really have to carry me while running?" The young chief blushed and said awkwardly, "I've never held a female before that I don't have any experience, but I promise I won't do that again." Lu Ling was just about to shout that there would be no next time when the young chief suddenly covered her mouth. The massive bear had already followed their scent and reached nearby. It suddenly thrust a huge paw through the crevice of the cave, clawing wildly. The tip of its claws came within just 0.1 centimeters of Lu Ling. Failing to find them, the bear finally lumbered off toward another direction. Because of the danger, the two of them had been pressed extremely close together. The young chief planned to wait a bit longer before leaving, but found that Lu Ling leaning against him felt strangely comfortable. Was this the charm of a female? Lu Ling hurriedly pulled away, trying to explain what had happened between her and the little leopard. Unexpectedly, the young chief used the excuse that the beast might still be nearby and pulled her back into his arms, feeling the warmth between them. Lu Ling then explained in detail how she had met the little leopard, assuring him she would never do anything improper. "Please rest assured," she said, "that I'll even put my looks on the line as a guarantee." The young chief seemed stunned, his face burning red as he kept telling himself that he couldn't possibly like Lu Ling. "I will wait for the female who truly belongs to me." He wanted to save his most perfect self for her. Two beastmen fought fiercely over a single human female, their clashing energies affecting everything within a 100-meter radius. For Xiying, this was the first time in his life he had met an evenly matched opponent. Even so, he was determined to stop the little leopard from staying by Lu Ling's side. "Even if Lu Ling has many male partners, you will never be one of them." The little leopard pleaded pitifully, "I approached sister for no other reason, it's just that I..." Before he could finish, Lu Ling rushed back. Seeing them tangled in a fight, she urgently told Xiying to stop and release the little leopard first. Hearing Lu Ling's voice, Xiying finally loosened his grip. With displeasure in his heart, he asked, "Is he the only one you care about?" Lu Ling hurried to explain, "When you fight, no matter who gets hurt, it pains me." Xiying struck a cool pose and said, "Your male isn't that fragile." At that moment, the little leopard spoke up, "Sister, this was my fault, that I was the one who provoked Xiying first." Lu Ling asked why he had provoked him, and the little leopard replied, "Because Xiying wouldn't let me stay by your side. Sister is the best and most beautiful female, that I want to stay with her forever." Just then, the returning young chief interrupted them. "Our tribe never shelters wandering beastmen of unknown origin. There have been groups of wandering beastmen active nearby recently. What exactly is your relationship with them?" The little leopard hesitated, unsure how to explain. Seeing his hesitation, the young chief concluded that he must be hiding something. Unbeknownst to them, a malicious wandering beastman was secretly watching everything unfold. When he spotted the little leopard, this so-called traitor, inside the tribe, he burst out of the bushes in a powerful triple leap. When Shi Ying saw the wandering beastman appear, he immediately moved in front of Lu Ling to shield her. The little leopard cried out in shock, how could it be him? The young chief also recognized him clearly. This wandering beastman was Evil Wind, one of the murderers of the tribe's people. Shi Ying and the young chief moved in from left and right, attempting to strike Evil Wind together. Unexpectedly, Evil Wind reacted with incredible speed and dodged their pincer attack. Instead, the two of them collided head-on with each other. Seizing the chance, Evil Wind grabbed Lu Ling and warned them not to make any sudden moves. Knowing Evil Wind's brutal nature, the little leopard urgently begged him not to hurt Lu Ling. The young chief shouted angrily, "Little leopard, so you really are on their side." The little leopard hurried to explain, "I never took part in anything the wandering beastmen did." But Evil Wind cut him off with a sneer, "Don't bother explaining. I end their eyes. You'll always be scum." He then mocked the little leopard, "You were pretty nervous about her just now. If I squeeze a little harder, will it hurt you?" Evil Wind continued his threat. "Come back with me obediently or Lu Ling won't see tonight's moon." For Lu Ling's sake, the little leopard had no choice but to agree to go back with Evil Wind. Even if it meant returning to a life of endless darkness, he refused to let his sister suffer even the slightest harm. Lu Ling, however, couldn't help but worry about the little leopard. If the wandering beastmen were truly as cruel as the young chief said, the little leopard would be in grave danger. They had to find a way to break free from Evil Wind first. Just then, a familiar roar suddenly echoed through the area. The large brown bear had followed their scent and found Lu Ling and the others once again. But at this moment, Lu Ling felt no fear at all. Instead, she came up with a way to deal with the wandering beastman. To protect herself, she deliberately lured Bear 2 out. Following the sound, Bear 2 turned his gaze toward Lu Ling. The wandering beastman holding Lu Ling hostage warned her in a low voice not to make a sound. One more word and he would seal her mouth. Just then, heavy thudding footsteps echoed nearby. Bear 2 appeared in front of them, letting out a harsh, grating roar. Seeing Evil Wind distracted by Bear 2, the little leopard and Shi Ying seized the opportunity. They closed in from both sides, preparing to rescue Lu Ling. Shi Ying poured all his strength into a punch and swung it at Evil Wind. Unexpectedly, Evil Wind dragged Lu Ling in front of him, forcing Shi Ying to halt mid-strike and nearly injuring her. At that moment, Bear 2 struck Evil Wind from behind with a powerful swipe. With no way left to dodge, Evil Wind cruelly shoved Lu Ling toward Bear 2. The shocking move left everyone stunned. Even Lu Ling and Bear 2 were momentarily thrown off by the sudden turn of events. Bear 2 recovered first and lunged straight at Lu Ling. Terrified, Lu Ling blurted out, "Little deer is so cute. Please don't eat the deer." The young chief charged forward with all his strength and punched Bear 2 square in the face. He followed up with a kick, sending Bear 2 flying away. Just in time, he pulled Lu Ling into his arms and said firmly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." The seemingly fierce Bear 2 was beaten to tears and fled in panic, wiping his eyes as he ran. Seeing that everything was finally safe, the young chief asked with concern whether Lu Ling's neck was hurt. Standing so close, he caught her scent again and his blood began to stir uncontrollably. The more he sensed it, the more restless he became, unconsciously calling Lu Ling's name in a gentle voice. Lu Ling suddenly thought of something and asked, "If you can defeat Bear 2, why did you carry me and run earlier?" The question caught the young chief off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless. He could only make up an excuse, saying that with her by his side he couldn't fully use his strength. Lu Ling leaned closer and asked, "Can I trust you?" Then she remembered something else. "Oh right. What about the wandering beastman?" The little leopard and Shi Ying had already pinned him down tightly. Each of them pressed a foot on Evil Wind, and the little leopard even wanted to finish him on the spot. Sensing that the feline beastman was showing off in front of Lu Ling, Shi Ying started mocking him verbally. Outmatched in words, the little leopard was so upset that his eyes reddened and he turned to Lu Ling, seeking a hug. Shi Ying quickly grabbed him by the neck and tossed him aside, ordering him to watch Evil Wind. Then Shi Ying turned his gaze toward the young chief. "You two were standing a bit too close just now." Feeling guilty, the young chief quickly found an excuse to leave and check on the wandering beastman. Soon, only Lu Ling and Shi Ying were left together. Shi Ying asked gently, "Does your neck still hurt?" Leaning in, he began disinfecting the wound for her. Then he asked softly, "Can we go back to our little cave now? It's a better place for us to live." Lu Ling told Shi Ying not to worry, the wound wasn't serious. Instead, Xiying began acting spoiled, claiming that he was injured too. Lu Ling foolishly believed him and quickly asked where it hurt. Taking advantage of the moment, Xiying grabbed her hand, pressed it to his chest, then down to his abdomen, solemnly declaring that his whole body hurt. He even added seriously that if she could give him a loving kiss mark, it might ease the pain a little. Lu Ling immediately realized he was teasing her and tried to push him away. She stepped back slightly, saying that any inspection could wait until they got home. The young chief nearby was practically getting a nosebleed and complained, "Stop showing off in front of a single beast like me. Once the tribe settles down, I'm finding a partner too." Then he turned to interrogate the captured wandering beast man. "Why did you attack us? What's your relationship with the little leopard?" Evil Wind sneered. Of course we're on the same side, that he was sent ahead as a spy. As he spoke, Evil Wind tried to stand up. Xiying kicked him down without hesitation. Lying on the ground, Evil Wind mocked, "Baofu, you think escaping our control means the tribe will really accept you?" Hearing the slander, the little leopard was furious that if you hadn't done those things first, I would never have stayed with you. Then he looked at Lu Ling anxiously. "Sister, please believe me." Unexpectedly, the young chief stepped forward and asked coldly, "What proof can you offer? If you can't prove it, the tribe will treat you as an enemy." The little leopard looked at Lu Ling with grievance, and Lu Ling urged him to speak quickly. Only then could he stay in the tribe. With no other choice, the little leopard began telling his tragic past. When he was young, he lived with his mother and every day was happy and peaceful. One day, they were captured by wandering beastmen. They forcibly took his mother away for breeding. When he saw her again, she had been beaten to death for refusing. Overwhelmed with grief, he ran alone for who knows how long. By chance, he discovered a beast god stone inside a cave. Its power instantly turned him into a Tier 4 warrior. He intended to use that power to avenge his mother. But in the end, he still couldn't defeat the wandering leader. He was imprisoned and tortured until he finally found a chance to escape. The day he met Sister falling from the cliff, she was the only one who treated him kindly. She didn't despise him and even said she would give him the warmth of a home. After hearing the little leopard's story, Lu Ling realized he wasn't allied with the wandering beastmen and agreed to let him stay by her side. At that moment, Evil Wind shouted loudly, "Baofu belongs to the tribe, that he can only obey the chief's orders." Xiying couldn't stand it anymore and slapped Evil Wind on the head, telling him to shut up. Then he said to the little leopard, "There's another small cave near where I live, that if you don't mind, you can stay there for now, you little stray cat." The little leopard was irritated as well. "Stop calling me a cat. I'm a proper leopard, got it?" Hearing that, Xiying snorted that if you're so impressive, then forget the cave. The little leopard had no choice but to back down and beg. Lu Ling noticed that Xiying seemed to have changed, no longer as resistant to dealing with strangers as before. The young chief came over to bid Lu Ling farewell, planning to take the wandering beastman back to the tribe for judgment. "I'll remember your contribution. If you need any help, just ask." Lu Ling replied calmly, "If there's a problem, Xiying will help me. You should focus on your own duties first." Not hearing the answer he hoped for, the young chief felt an inexplicable sense of loss and heartbreak. Why isn't she taking advantage like she used to? Back then, I would have agreed to anything she asked. I need to think of a way to make her ask for something unreasonable. Soon after, Lu Ling and the others arrived at the cave prepared for the little leopard. Xiying noticed a trace of displeasure on the little leopard's face. But in truth, the little leopard was worried that the cave might be too far from where his sister lived. Xiying told him it was only the distance of crossing a bamboo grove. The little leopard thought that since it was so close, he could find chances to visit sister more often. Xiying immediately saw through his thoughts. He warned him to disturb Lu Ling's life less, or he'd throw him into the back mountains to feed the wolves. The little leopard schemed to himself, "You won't always be home." Xiying added that if he dared cross his bottom line, he'd turn him into medicinal wine ingredients. Then Xiying wrapped an arm around Lu Ling and headed back to his cave with her. Along the way, Lu Ling noticed Xiying keeping a long face. She asked if something was bothering him. Xiying said he wasn't unhappy, he was just thinking whether letting the little leopard stay might become a risk. "I was a bit soft on him just now." Lu Ling guessed that Xiying's childhood might have been similar to Baofu's, which was why he felt conflicted. Suddenly noticing bamboo covering the mountain, she stepped forward, snapped one off and wanted to make a flute. Xiying finally found his chance to show off. He stepped up and effortlessly broke the bamboo. Lu Ling then asked him to drill small holes according to the markings. Xing used his fingers, drilling quickly with sharp sounds. Lu Ling touched Xing and said, "This is my gift to you." Holding the newly made flute, she played a tune. The sound stirred Xing's emotions, and he thought that Lu Ling was far too captivating. He'd have to keep her well protected. Overcome with feeling, he got a bit rough with her. He asked softly, "When we get back, shall we have cubs?" Lu Ling felt that Xing's request jumped a bit too far. Xing quickly picked her up and said they could go back and hold the bonding ceremony first, leaving the rest for later. Lu Ling felt it was moving too fast. After all, she had just graduated not long ago. Xing, however, thought Lu Ling was about to abandon him again like before, especially now with the little leopard around acting overly attentive. Lu Ling hurried to reassure him that she had never thought about bonding with anyone else. Xing asked her to prove it. After a moment's thought, Lu Ling smiled and said she would only play the flute for him. Would that be enough? Hearing that, Xing felt that something finally belonged to him alone. He warned her seriously never to play it for anyone else, or he would get angry and ignore her. Then he suddenly nipped lightly at her foot. Startled, Lu Ling pushed him away and asked what he was doing. Xing replied solemnly that it was simply what bonded partners did. Lu Ling immediately grew nervous. Doing that in a bamboo grove in broad daylight was just too much. She pretended that her stomach hurt and that she wasn't feeling well. Hearing this, Xing immediately picked her up and headed back to the cave. He didn't notice that the flute Lu Ling had just played had fallen to the ground. Worried only about Lu Ling's condition, Xing didn't turn back to retrieve it. At that moment, the young chief sprinted toward the sound of the flute, excitement surging. Had someone in the tribe awakened priestly abilities? Such a beautiful melody could only be played by a priest. When he looked closely, the one holding the flute turned out to be Yang Su. He asked, "Was that sound just now played by you?" Yang Su thought to herself, "Whatever. Agree first. At the very least, it might cancel my punishment." Back in the cave, Lu Ling was laid down on the bed. Like any man would, Xing prepared a warm water bag and placed it on her abdomen. The heat made Lu Ling's expression twist, but she didn't dare say anything. Xing assumed her stomach pain must be severe, judging by her expression. He suddenly remembered that the old priest had left behind spiritual medicine and decided to ask the clan leader for some. Lu Ling hurried after him, only to realize that Xing was already gone. Turning around, she saw the little leopard standing in the courtyard. The little leopard stepped forward and asked, "Sister, why is your face so red?" Lu Ling asked him to help chase after Xing and stop him from getting medicine from the clan leader. Without hesitation, the little leopard scooped his sister up in his arms. "I don't know where the clan leader's place is. Carry you along so you can point the way." Lu Ling knew he was taking advantage of the moment, but to catch up with Xing, she endured it for now. After sprinting all the way, Xing finally reached the clan leader's house. There he saw a crowd gathered around Yang Su, chatting animatedly. When Yang Su spotted Xing, she said happily, "I'll be the tribe's high priestess from now on. Xing, if you choose me, you'll be my first mate. Any mates I take later will all be under your authority." The other females chimed in, urging him to accept the role, clearly showing how much Priestess Yang cared for him, telling him not to miss such a good opportunity. Unexpectedly, Lu Ling arrived with the others right then. The little leopard seized the moment to mock Xing, saying it looked like Big Brother didn't want his sister anymore. He hadn't even shown any sign of refusing. At the same time, Xing noticed Lu Ling standing behind him. He asked irritably, "Weren't you having stomach pain? Why did you run all the way here?" He reached out to pull her into his arms, but Lu Ling deliberately stepped back and avoided him. Xing froze. "Why are you suddenly so distant with me?" Lu Ling replied calmly, "If I hadn't arrived in time, would you have accepted Yang Su's courtship?" Xing felt deeply wronged. He had never thought of agreeing to that. Lu Ling smacked him lightly and added, "You already have a partner that I don't want to see you lacking basic loyalty outside." Xing had expected blame, but instead grew nervous, afraid she thought he might accept other females' advances. Seeing him muttering to himself with a foolish grin, Lu Ling frowned. Before she could react, Xing pulled her into his arms. He whispered, "What did you mean by what you just said? Are you saying you want me to protect you for the rest of my life?" Seeing Lu Ling and the others showing affection, Yang Su's face turned green with anger. She decided to provoke Xing again. "Once I become the priestess, Plenty of males will fight to be my mate. Aren't you really going to consider the position of first mate? Xing turned to Lu Ling and asked, someone's trying to steal your mail. Can you think of a way to deal with this? Lu Ling looked at Yang Su and said calmly, you say you're the future priestess. What proof do you have? The females beside her rushed to speak. Priestess Yang of course has proof. She can make sound with a bamboo flute. They urged Yang Su to hurry up and take it out, telling Lu Ling to open her eyes and take a good look. Lu Ling noticed Yang Su hiding her hands behind her back, clearly trying to avoid attention. Then she unexpectedly saw the flute she had dropped in the bamboo forest, and everything became clear. So Yang Su had picked up her flute and pretended she could play music herself. Since that was the case, Lu Ling decided to dig the pit a little deeper and let her embarrass herself properly. Since the tribe has a new priestess, why not show everyone your ability and lift morale? The crowd grew excited. It had been a long time since they'd heard such a mysterious sound. Yang Su felt increasingly anxious. She didn't even know how the sound was made. Lu Ling also urged her on. Go ahead, perform. Yang Su seized the chance and said, I was born with healing abilities. I'll play something for you now. What followed was a harsh, chaotic noise that made everyone cover their ears. Only the young chief frowned and thought. The sound was completely different from before. Some beasts muttered, the old priest didn't sound this bad. Maybe she's just not skilled yet. Seeing no one press the issue, Yang Su declared confidently, now you all believe in my abilities, right? But Lu Ling wouldn't let her get away with it. She said calmly, that wasn't right just now. Let me show you. Yang Su refused to give Lu Ling a chance and slammed the flute onto the ground. She stomped on it, snapping it in two. The crowd gasped, had Yang Su gone crazy? Yang Su shouted at Lu Ling, I'm the priestess. Even if I destroy the flute, I won't let you perform. Lu Ling smiled confidently. Break as many as you want. Xing can make a new one anytime. The beast folk were stunned. Lord Xing could even craft a bamboo flute. Xing quickly made another flute and showed it to everyone. He handed it to Lu Ling and motioned for her to play. Yang Su stood aside, her face dark as coal. Lu Ling raised the flute and played, a gentle and soothing melody filling the air. The beast folk had never heard such beautiful music, and even more astonishing, it healed injuries. Only then did the young chief realize, the person in the bamboo grove had been Lu Ling. The little leopard stepped forward. Yang Su, you're a thief. Yang Su shouted back, I picked that flute up in the bamboo grove. I never thought it would turn out like this. Curse me all you want. A female nearby still defended her. Lu Ling, don't abuse your power. Do you really need to slander her like this? The little leopard snapped. She took what wasn't hers, tried to steal my sister's priestess title and even her mate. Yet she still plays the victim? The beast folk spoke up one after another, demanding the chief punish the imposter. Xing added coldly, Yang Su, hurt Lu Ling again and I'll end your life, even if it means exile. Only then did Yang Su feel true fear. She fled in tears, swearing that everyone who humiliated her would regret it. The little leopard wanted to chase after the thief and let his sister decide her fate. Xing pulled Lu Ling firmly to his side. He coldly told the little leopard to get lost and stop pretending to be pitiful, calling him a pesky little cat. At that moment, the young chief approached, wanting to speak with Lu Ling alone. Since you're the tribe's priestess, there are things we need to discuss privately. Could you step outside with me? Unbeknownst to them, Lion Meng was also watching everything from the crowd. Lu Ling is actually the tribe's priestess. I suppose I'll allow her to be my mate. Meanwhile, the young chief and Lu Ling were talking outside. I thought the tribe was already in decline, but your appearance has given me hope again. Lu Ling wanted to tell him the truth, that she wasn't truly a priestess. But the young chief interrupted her. I understand. You want to stay low-key. It's not the right time to make this public. Deep down, he admired Lu Ling. Despite her status, she remained humble and approachable. Before the ceremony begins, let's go to the Flaming Tribe together, exchange resources and attend the awakening ritual. Hearing the name Flaming Tribe, Lu Ling recalled the original plot. Wasn't that where Xing met the original heroine on the way? It seemed the true female lead was about to appear. At some point, Lion Meng appeared at the entrance of Lu Ling's home. When he saw her come out, he struck what he believed was a handsome pose. I've been looking for a mate recently. Since you once chased after me so desperately, I'll give you a chance. But on one condition, You must dump Xing. Do you need time to think about it? In the past she had even snatched a wild beast's cub to please the male she admired, nearly dying from the mother's attack, all for a single smile. Instead she was met with jealousy and collective humiliation from other females. The original Lu Ling truly had the mindset of a hopeless simp. Lion Meng assumed that Lu Ling was still the same woman who would obediently agree as long as he asked. Unexpectedly, Lu Ling slapped his reaching hand away. The move caught Lion Meng completely off guard. With a cold expression, Lu Ling said, "Don't think every woman will flatter you just because you want something. Why would I abandon someone who truly loves me just to accept a trash man like you? Where does your confidence even come from?" Furious after being humiliated, Lion Meng roared, "This is your last warning. If you don't cherish me now, you'll be begging later, and I won't care." Lu Ling sneered. "So the priestess title is the real reason you changed your attitude, huh? Someone like you bothering me every day, I should be grateful if you just stayed away. Don't think I don't see it. You bully weaker females just to feel important and superior. With tricks like that, you're nothing but trash, so weak I can't even be bothered to seriously judge you." Lion Meng was completely stunned by the verbal onslaught, his mind echoing with only one phrase, "Pathetically weak." He subconsciously thought about how he was usually served by several females. Lonely, empty. What a joke. Then Lu Ling kept going. "Everyone in the tribe is building something. What have you ever contributed? You think you're handsome all day long, but honestly, you're not even qualified to be the fourth male lead." Lion Meng finally couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "What do you mean by fourth male lead?" Lu Ling turned around and walked away. "Stop obsessing over useless things. Just remember, I'm not who I used to be." Lion Meng stood there, replaying her words in his mind. Was I really that worthless before? He quickly shook his head. That couldn't be true. It had to be because she disliked how many females surrounded him, so she lashed out at him. In that case, he would devote himself to her alone. He shouted loudly, "The priestess's partner can only be me, Lion Meng." A cold voice suddenly replied, "Don't even dream about it in this lifetime." A handsome male stepped forward. It was Lu Ling's younger brother, Lu Yu. Lion Meng stared in disbelief. Weren't you out searching for your parents' remains? You don't even have warrior talent, yet you came back alive." He reached out to grab Lu Yu. "Didn't you abandon Lu Ling?" Lu Yu instantly twisted his wrist, gripping it so hard it felt like it would snap. "How I treat her is my business. You don't get to bully that idiot. Try it again and I'll make sure you can't take care of yourself for the rest of your life." Meanwhile, Shi Ying was preparing supplies to leave with Lu Ling, while the little leopard helped out nearby. The leopard joked, "Leaving my sister in your care all the way? I'm not reassured, you're way too weak." Shi Ying's face darkened instantly. The leopard kept joking without a care in the world. Shi Ying raised his fist, ready to punch him. Lu Ling quickly stopped them. "Can you two please stop fighting?" Shi Ying pulled Lu Ling into his arms. "We were just helping you pack." Unexpectedly, the little leopard shouted loudly, "Brother Shi Ying wants to secretly take you to the salt gang to trade for salt." Lu Ling looked confused. "Why sneak around? The young chief already ordered me to go to the flaming tribe." Hearing that, Shi Ying was overjoyed. "Then you won't leave my side for even a moment. If I left you behind, I'd be afraid someone would bully you." Lu Ling felt his warmth, yet couldn't help wondering. If they met the original heroine on the road, would he abandon her? The little leopard tugged at Lu Ling's arm. "Sister, can you take Bao Fu with you too?" Shi Ying immediately rejected the request, leaving the leopard to beg Lu Ling shamelessly. At that moment, Lu Ling's younger brother Lu Yu arrived at their cave. Seeing the three of them tangled together, he flared up. "Why are you still like this, sister?" Out of nowhere, a female sneered. "Lu Ling is just a cheap woman who seduces males." Lu Yu's expression instantly darkened. Huna thought Lu Yu was handsome and assumed he shared her views, moving closer to curry favor. To her shock, Lu Yu grabbed her wrist. "If you don't want to end up crippled, shut your mouth. I'll count to 3. Disappear from my sight, now." One sharp shout of "Get lost" sent Huna fleeing in panic. At that moment, Lu Ling and the others heard arguing outside and stepped out to see what was going on. When Lu Yu saw Lu Ling, he immediately asked, "What is your relationship with that male beside you?" Sensing hostility, the little leopard's gaze turned sharp. The air seemed to freeze. Lu Ling quickly stepped forward. "That male is my younger brother." Lu Yu replied coldly, displeased. "I'm not your brother. We already cut ties long ago." Lu Ling felt her chest tighten. the urge to cry nearly overwhelming her. Yet a voice inside her told her this wasn't true. Her brother had always wanted to grow stronger to protect her. Their bond should have been close. Lu Yu then said, "When we were young, I liked you the most. But later you changed, became unreasonable, even hitting me for the sake of other males." The little leopard couldn't stand it anymore. "You dare talk about the goddess I admire like that?" He moved to strike Lu Yu. "Don't spread nonsense about my sister." Lu Yu caught his wrist effortlessly. "You just called her sister?" Turning to Lu Ling, he questioned her with obvious jealousy. "When did you get another brother? Why don't you just admit it all at once? How many brothers do you actually have?" At that moment, the system Xiao Du suddenly popped out. He asked in confusion, "What's going on here? A love battlefield?" Lu Yu and Bao Fu continued arguing back and forth. Bao Fu said coldly, "You were the one who cut ties back then. What right do you have to yell at her now?" Lu Yu no longer bothered arguing with Bao Fu, while Bao Fu had no intention of stepping aside. Furious, Lu Yu grabbed Bao Fu as if a fight would break out the next second. At that moment, Lu Ling shouted loudly, ordering Lu Yu to let Bao Fu go. Since transmigrating, Lu Ling had been misunderstood again and again. She had already dealt with enough of the mess left by the original owner. Now that even the closest person to her spoke with such malice, it was better to end it cleanly. Lu Ling took out the talisman and said coldly, "Didn't you want to cut ties? Fine. I agree. From now on, I'm no longer your sister and you're no longer my family. We go our separate ways and never interfere again." Memories from childhood flooded Lu Yu's mind. The protective stones their father had prayed to the beast god for, one for Lu Ling and one for him. Their father had once said they were the closest family in the world, meant to support and protect each other. Thinking of this, Lu Yu's emotions sank that he was about to say something. But Lu Ling had already turned away, pulling Snake Shadow with her. Lu Yu stood there watching Lu Ling's retreating figure. The words he wanted to say never left his mouth. As an older sister, could she really bring herself to sever ties with her brother? Though Lu Ling appeared decisive on the outside, her heart felt like it was being cut apart. Distracted, she nearly tripped over a small stone. Fortunately, Snake Shadow reacted quickly and caught her. Leaning into his arms, Lu Ling whispered, "I'm sorry, Snake Shadow, that I've been trying to control my emotions, but I still can't stop feeling sad." Even though Lu Yu wasn't truly her brother, it felt as if something had been taken from her, leaving a sorrow she couldn't suppress. Snake Shadow gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes and comforted her softly. "Don't cry. You still have me. And no matter what happens, I'll never leave you." Just as the two were wrapped in an intimate moment, the rather shameless system Dudu suddenly appeared in midair. Lu Ling hurriedly pushed Snake Shadow away. Good thing she reacted in time. She almost forgot Dudu was watching. She couldn't possibly kiss in front of an underage system. Dudu, who loved watching drama unfold, even urged the host, "Hurry up and kiss." Lu Ling quickly changed the subject, saying it wasn't the right time yet, and asked why Dudu had suddenly appeared. Successfully diverted, Dudu explained that it had been forcibly taken offline for an upgrade. Now it was version 2.0 with far more comprehensive scanning abilities. Lu Ling was overjoyed. Thankfully, little Dudu was back. Otherwise, she would have thought her cheat had disappeared. Dudu, however, frowned and fell into thought that it seemed the host still hadn't remembered that she was once part of the beast world herself. But now wasn't the time to tell her the truth. Even if it didn't say it out loud, Dudu felt a little guilty toward the host and decided it should do something to make up for it. With that in mind, Dudu deliberately scanned two valuable items for the host: divine mechanism herbs and a beast god stone. After receiving Dudu's hint, Lu Ling led Xiying into a dark cave. The moment they stepped inside, they saw venomous snakes everywhere. Xiying pulled Lu Ling into his arms to keep her from getting hurt. He moved deeper along the cave wall. Lu Ling told him they were almost there. Soon the two of them reached the deepest part of the cave. A massive seven-colored flower came into view. Lu Ling finally saw the legendary divine herb along with the beast god stone, said to be an overpowered treasure in the beast world. As they stared in awe, danger quietly crept closer. Excited, Lu Ling rushed forward and successfully picked the priceless treasure. At that moment, a giant python silently closed in from behind, ready to ambush them. Thanks to Xiying's sharp instincts, he sensed the danger in time and shielded Lu Ling behind him. The python lunged and missed, then opened its bloody jaws in fury. The giant python coiled its tail tightly around Xiying. It then bit down hard on Shi Ying's arm. Shi Ying was on the brink of death when the system, Dudu, threw a dagger to Lu Ling at the critical moment. Lu Ling grabbed the dagger without hesitation and stabbed straight into the python's vital spot. The giant python shrieked in pain, throwing its head back. It went berserk, trying to swallow Lu Ling whole. Luckily, Shi Ying broke free in time and shielded her, allowing Lu Ling to strike again with the dagger. The python collapsed instantly and Shi Ying fell to the ground from exhaustion. He leaned against the rock wall in agony. Even then, he still told Lu Ling to take the divine herb and leave immediately, telling her not to worry about him. Lu Ling told him to stop talking and stuffed the freshly picked divine herb into his mouth. Watching him suffer, she couldn't be sure whether the herb would actually work. Unfortunately, there was no anti-venom in the beast world, leaving her no better option. Shi Ying showed signs of ancestral reversion, and as he looked at the delicate Lu Ling, an uncontrollable urge to have offspring with her surfaced. After consuming the divine herb, Shi Ying pressed Lu Ling's hand against his chest and asked softly why she used something so precious on him instead of saving it for herself as a future priestess. Lu Ling told him that if he didn't wake up, there would be no what if for her. No matter how precious it was, she would use it to save him. Deeply moved, Shi Ying was shaken by her words. He sat up, cupped Lu Ling's face and said with deep remorse, "I'm sorry that I understand now." Realizing that, in Lu Ling's heart, he mattered more than the divine herb itself, Shi Ying instinctively moved closer to her. He told Lu Ling that he seemed to be entering ancestral reversion. Before she could react, his lower body gradually transformed into a serpent's tail, tightly coiling around her. Ancestral reversion often awakened a beastman's primal instincts, and his instinct was courtship. Sensing the danger, Lu Ling quickly escaped from beneath him. She said that using the beast godstone could suppress the reversion. Although Lu Ling cared deeply for Shi Ying and knew this moment would come eventually, with his current condition, going any further could cost him his life, and the thought terrified her. Suddenly, Shi Ying grabbed Lu Ling's ankle from behind with crushing force. He pinned her down again, and this time she hesitated, unsure if she truly wanted to suppress him anymore. Shi Ying wrapped his arms around Lu Ling from behind as she kept telling him to stop. He covered her mouth, preventing her from calling out. By now, Shi Ying had lost all rational control and didn't want to hear rejection from her lips. Just as he tried to press closer, Lu Ling broke down in tears. Shi Ying immediately froze, worry flooding his eyes as he urgently asked why she was crying. Shi Ying began to doubt himself. Was being with him really something that made Lu Ling suffer this much? Lu Ling explained that she'd been too nervous earlier and had accidentally triggered her period. Being scared and tense enough to cause period cramps was already embarrassing. Saying it out loud felt even worse. Completely confused, Shi Ying asked what a period was. The next second, his keen senses caught the scent of blood. Instinctively, he tried to check where the blood was coming from. Lu Ling shouted in embarrassment, telling him to stop. Blushing, she explained that she wasn't injured. It was just a normal monthly biological cycle called a period. Shi Ying looked unconvinced. "But you didn't have this before." "I've never had anything like that either." "Are you hurt and just pretending you're fine?" Lu Ling rested her chin in her hand, struggling with how to explain this. After all, teaching reproductive biology to a beastman in a primitive world was way too hard. In the end, she gave him a blunt explanation. This wasn't because he failed to protect her. It was something females experience before having offspring. The moment he heard having offspring, Shi Ying's eyes lit up. Carrying his still partially transformed serpent tail, he turned and headed out of the cave. Lu Ling asked where he was going. Looking back, Shi Ying said, "You're hurt right now. I can't hurt you anymore. I need to cool off and wait until my reversion phase ends. Otherwise, there won't be any babies." Lu Ling couldn't help thinking that waiting out the reversion phase must be incredibly painful for him. Lu Ling told Shi Ying that she had a way to end his reversion phase early. Following her instructions, Shi Ying quickly began striking the ground with his fists. As the number of blows increased, a deep pit gradually formed, but at first there was nothing inside. Lu Ling's sharp eyes caught a faint glimmer between the cracks of the rocks. She told Shi Ying to dig there. The thing that could end his reversion phase was underneath. Shi Ying was doubtful, but if putting in more effort could keep Lu Ling from being disappointed, it was worth it. He searched frantically through the rubble and soon uncovered a stone that shone brilliantly. He found it. It was a beast god stone. Shi Ying could clearly feel the power radiating from it. So this was the beast god stone that could instantly enhance a warrior's strength. Just holding it made his body crave its power. But there was only one. With a resolute gaze, Xing handed the beast god stone to Lu Ling, urging her to try absorbing its energy instead. You're going to become a priestess someday. You need this to grow stronger. Take it. Once you have it, no one will dare look down on you. Lu Ling hesitated, but the system Dudu chimed in, urging her to accept it. With the beast god stone, the host would soon become the strongest priestess, strong enough to face even the original protagonist without fear. Lu Ling felt deeply puzzled. It made sense that Xing wanted her to become a priestess. But why did Dudu also want her to seize the fortune that originally belonged to the novel's heroine? With that thought, Lu Ling cautiously questioned Dudu about its true intentions. If you won't explain, she said, then I'll give the beast god stone to Xing. With that, Lu Ling handed the stone to the heavily wounded Xing. Their gazes met softly. Since transmigrating, Xing had always been the one protecting her. How could she bear to watch such a devoted partner continue to suffer? Dudu kept urging Lu Ling to keep the stone, but Lu Ling replied firmly that if you won't tell me your purpose, then I choose to trust Xing. As long as he's here, that's my greatest support, that I can become a priestess through my own efforts. But the beast god stone is something Xing needs more. Between power and love, Lu Ling chose Xing. She gave up the stone that could have strengthened herself, wagering everything on Xing's loyalty. And no matter how much Dudu tried to persuade her, she did not waver. Understanding her resolve, Xing gently kissed her hair. As Xing absorbed the beast god stone's energy, his wounds healed completely within moments. At the same time, subtle changes began to occur within his body. Lu Ling asked anxiously how he was feeling. Xing lifted Lu Ling with one arm and told her that he was now a 5th-tier warrior. Xing casually pulled off the water silk shed after his advancement. Lu Ling asked in confusion what it was. She hadn't seen it earlier, so where did it come from? At that moment, the system Dudu completed its scan and explained that it was the skin Xing shed after reaching Tier 5. It provides solid physical resistance and enhanced magical offense. Weaker beasts would instinctively keep their distance. The water silk is warm, breathable, and stain-resistant, perfect for everyday use or travel. It turned out Xing noticed that Lu Ling's dress had been stained with blood and decided to make her a new one. That way, from the inside out, Lu Ling would be wrapped in Xing's scent. Lu Ling covered her mouth shyly. Was this the fabled beastman scent marking? It felt dangerously intimate. Laughing and chatting, the two continued on their way home. Along the path, they ran into the young chief preparing supplies with Lu Yu and Shermeng. From a distance, Lu Yu caught a strong scent of blood and thought his sister had been hurt. He rushed forward in concern. But Lu Ling didn't even look his way. Xing answered for her, saying she was just a bit tired. The young chief immediately noticed the remnants of a 4th-tier snake molt on Xing's shoulder. Excited, he asked if Xing had advanced. Xing replied calmly, yeah. Tier 5. Hearing the confirmation, the young chief lit up like a child. He waved his arms excitedly, saying this was incredible. Now that the tribe finally had a Tier 5 warrior, even another ambush from the Bald Wolf tribe wouldn't be a threat. Tier 5 warriors were extremely rare, and with Xing's breakthrough, the tribe finally had the confidence to stand up to larger clans. The young chief kept his deeper thoughts to himself, only telling everyone that with Xing at Tier 5, the risks of trading expeditions would be greatly reduced. He ordered everyone to prepare and depart early the next morning, return as soon as the supplies were exchanged. The news thrilled the tribe and many couldn't wait to tell their families. Shermeng, however, saw things differently. In the past, no one in the tribe had broken through the Tier 4 bottleneck, allowing him to stand on equal footing with the young chief and Xing. Now that Xing had reached Tier 5, Shermeng was convinced Lu Ling was the reason. As the future priestess, she must possess a way to rapidly strengthen warriors, and if he won her affection, he would surely grow stronger as well. Lu Yu was the most prideful younger brother the young chief had ever seen. Though he claimed to have cut ties with Lu Ling, he still worried about her safety at every turn, even keeping an eye on Shermeng when he secretly slipped toward Lu Ling's cave. Just as Lu Yu quietly followed Shermeng to see what he was up to, Shermeng's sharp instincts picked up on him. He immediately launched an attack toward the source of the noise. Lu Yu failed to dodge in time and took a direct hit to the abdomen. When Shermeng realized the one tailing him was Lu Yu, his attitude instantly changed. putting on a fake smile and feigned concern. "Oh, so it's you," he sneered. "I thought it was someone important. Just a little dear brat who hasn't even awakened as a warrior yet." He laughed coldly. "What, you're trying to take a shortcut too? Hoping Lu Ling will help you jump straight to tier 5. As he spoke, Meng kicked Lu Yu hard in the stomach. He continued mocking him. "Didn't you two cut ties already? Do you really think she still cares whether you live or die? She'd rather help Xiying advance than awaken your talent. Look at you now, beaten like a dog. And still stubbornly trying to protect her. Don't you find that pathetic?" Completely enraged, Lu Yu punched Meng in the face and shouted back, "What she is to me is none of your business." At that moment Lu Yu looked up and saw Lu Ling standing nearby, having witnessed everything. The awkward silence left Lu Yu at a loss for words, while Lu Ling softly repeated what he had just said. Panic flashed across Lu Yu's face. "I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying we cut ties. No, that's not it. I just meant I wouldn't help you anymore." He rubbed his head in frustration, realizing he was only making things worse. Fortunately, Lu Ling had already seen through her brother. This awkward side of him was anything but cold-hearted. Before coming out, Xiying had told Lu Ling that the Beast God Stone's energy wasn't fully used, and the remaining power could help Lu Yu awaken as a warrior. He believed that if Lu Ling handed it to Lu Yu, their relationship would improve. Lu Ling had worried Lu Yu might refuse, but with Xiying's encouragement she finally gathered the courage to try. Thinking of this, Lu Ling stepped forward and offered the Beast God Stone to Lu Yu. The moment Meng saw it, his eyes lit up. It was the very thing that allowed Xiying to advance. He lunged forward, grabbing Lu Ling's hand, staring at the stone as he reminded her of her promise. "Lu Ling, you said any resources you got would come to me first up. Be good. Give me the stone. Once I'm strong I'll marry you, deal?" Before he could finish, Lu Yu shoved Meng aside and stood in front of his sister. No. Lu Yu knew all too well how much Lu Ling once cared for Meng. He couldn't let her be used again. He struck Meng in front of Lu Ling, rejected her kindness and pushed the stone back. "Someone as weak as you," he said coldly, "won't always have protection once you leave the tribe. Keep it for yourself." Lu Ling tried to insist, but Lu Yu cut her off firmly. "No, just make sure you take care of yourself." Holding the Beast God Stone, Lu Ling stood there for a long moment before leaving in silence, disappointment heavy in her heart. Lu Yu thought he must have said something wrong again, making Lu Ling so upset, and he began blaming himself for speaking that way. Meng sneered impatiently, saying Lu Yu was sticking his nose where it didn't belong. They had already cut ties. What right did he have to worry about Lu Ling? Being disliked was only natural. This little dear brat had ruined Meng's plans once again, and Meng took note of it. Lu Yu stared gloomily at the protective stone, wondering if he really deserved to be hated. At that moment, the young chief arrived at Lu Ling's cave with a large group. Bao Fu noticed the item in Lu Yu's hand right away and casually mentioned it, unknowingly rubbing salt into Lu Yu's wound. Annoyed, Lu Yu cut Bao Fu off. Remembering how good Bao Fu was at cheering that silly sister up, he asked indirectly, saying a friend of his had recently argued with his sister and wanted to know how to make up with her. Without much thought, Bao Fu replied that it was simple. Just act cute. After all, family members don't hold grudges overnight. Once you sincerely apologize, your sister definitely won't make things difficult for you. Right, brother Lu Yu? Lu Yu nodded, then quickly shook his head. No, don't misunderstand. I'm just asking for a friend. Bao Fu blinked knowingly and said he understood, hoping that Lu Yu's friend would reconcile with his sister soon. After saying that, he happily ran back to Lu Ling. Lu Yu watched the three of them sharing such a warm, lively moment. His heart felt heavy. Would his sister really forgive him? The day to head for the Yanyan tribe arrived quickly. The main group finally set off. Xing and Bao Fu led the way with Lu Ling at the front of the formation. Lu Ling couldn't help but wonder why so many people had to travel together for Huanyan. Dudu popped up to explain that every spring was the season for the warrior awakening ceremony. Tribes without a priestess had no choice but to rely on other tribes, leaving their future at others' mercy. That was why the host needed to become a priestess as soon as possible, so they wouldn't have to beg for opportunities anymore. A priestess didn't just hold the highest status in a tribe, she also made the entire tribe safer and stronger. Lu Ling couldn't understand why Dudu was pushing this so hard. Wouldn't taking the priestess role mean stealing the original female lead's destiny? Just as Dudu was about to explain, desperate cries suddenly rang out ahead. Lu Ling recognized the familiar setup at once. It was the original female lead. She had once been the rightful protagonist, but Lu Ling's interference had cost her everything. Her name was Hu Qiong, a female from the Yanyan tribe, now being hunted down by rogue beastmen. By sheer luck, she ran straight into Xing's group, screaming for help as she charged forward. She slammed straight into Xing's arms. Lu Ling's jealousy flared up the moment she appeared, as she ended up in physical contact with Xing. Judging by how fast the plot was moving, only the original female lead would get this kind of main character treatment. If this were a comic, the panel would probably already be filled with a soft pink, girlish atmosphere. But reality didn't match what Lu Ling expected. Xing asked in confusion who she was, daring to collide with his female. Then he grabbed Hu Qiong by the throat and demanded to know her purpose. At that moment, Shi Ying's mind was filled only with Lu Ling, completely ignoring any other female, which left Lu Ling stunned. Hu Qiong's face turned blue from being choked as she hurriedly explained that she was Hu Qiong from the Salt Lake tribe and was currently being hunted by rogue beastmen. Those rogue beastmen wanted to seize their Salt Lake and take their females, and they had been chasing her for 10 days already, begging them to save her. Hearing this, Shi Ying released his grip and told Hu Qiong to explain herself more clearly. Bao Fu only caught one thing: she had mentioned the rogue beastmen. At that moment, a large group of rogue beastmen chasing Hu Qiong caught up to them. One of them shouted Hu Qiong's name, mocking that someone about to die shouldn't struggle meaninglessly, and the two sides quickly fell into a standoff. Bao Fu recognized him, the leader of the rogue beastmen who had once brutally killed her mother, Old Leopard. Old Leopard sneered at Bao Fu. "I thought it was someone important. Turns out it's the little bastard who betrayed me." Old Leopard then noticed Lu Ling nearby. Oh, there's actually a decent-looking female here. And this little female even has half of a beast god stone on her. Shi Ying hurriedly pulled Lu Ling into his arms, warning Old Leopard to put away that ill-intentioned stare. Lu Ling was not a female he could covet. Old Leopard snorted. Not someone he could covet. There was nothing under the heavens he couldn't take. With a single order, he told his men to seize Lu Ling, break her limbs, and drag her back as a shared female to bear offspring for everyone. Shi Ying swung his wooden staff, stepping in front of Lu Ling. Old Leopard remained unfazed, lifting his staff and starting to berate Shi Ying. Just a newly advanced Tier 5 snake beast, while he himself was a peak Tier 5 warrior. Hearing that, Lu Ling couldn't help worrying about Shi Ying's safety. Shi Ying couldn't be bothered to listen to the nonsense. He launched straight at Old Leopard. Even as a newly advanced Tier 5, it was more than enough. The arrogant Old Leopard was defeated in a single exchange. Smashed flat onto the ground by Shi Ying. Once Shi Ying subdued Old Leopard, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Shi Ying was just about to walk toward Lu Ling to seek comfort, when Old Leopard seized the moment of inattention and lunged in his leopard form. Shi Ying told the boss to protect Lu Ling. The young chief led everyone into the fight as all the male beasts joined the battle. The cunning Meng quietly fixed his gaze on Lu Ling. A perfect chance. Lu Ling was alone. If she fell into danger now and he saved her like a hero, she would surely be moved. Marry him and hand over all the beast god stones. Meng had already begun fantasizing about Lu Ling falling for him. But just then a rogue beastman appeared behind Lu Ling, attempting a sneak attack. Meng grabbed the rogue beastman's wrist in time, showing off in front of Lu Ling. "Look closely, Lu Ling. The one strong enough to protect you at your side is Meng." Before Meng could finish speaking, the rogue beastman had already drawn a dagger. Lu Ling noticed it and tried to warn him, but it was already too late. One of Meng's hands was brutally severed, and he collapsed to the ground, wailing in agony. The ambushing rogue beastman mocked Meng, showing off and flirting with females in the middle of a fight. "You really think you're strong? A mere Tier 4, yet this is all the strength you have. Even a Tier 3 like him can kill you easily. If you'd spent even a fraction of the time you waste on females training, you wouldn't be this weak and arrogant." With that, the rogue beastman turned his attention to Lu Ling, slowly approaching her. If he dragged Lu Ling back as a shared female, the boss would surely reward him. Seeing Lu Ling in danger, Shi Ying was about to rush over to protect her, only for Old Leopard to latch onto him and refuse to let go. Getting knocked down again and again by Shi Ying, yet rising each time, stubborn like a cockroach that wouldn't die. But saving Lu Ling was the priority. Shi Ying grabbed a small stone. and hurled it toward the rogue beastman. The rogue beastman looked at the incoming stone in panic, caught it and mocked Lu Ling arrogantly. "So this is all your male can do?" The next second, power burst out from within the stone, scorching the rogue beastman's hand. He glared at Lu Ling, intent on venting his fury on her, and charged at her with his dagger raised. Lu Ling dodged in time and bolted away, but the path ahead ended in a dead end. In desperation, Lu Ling asked System Dudu if there was any way to stop the rogue beastman. Dudu helplessly replied that it was only a spy-type system, suggesting she try using the environment to counterattack. Yet on second thought, the host was far too weak and stood no chance against a Tier 3 beastman. Master and servant clutched each other and cried, as Lu Ling couldn't help complaining about why Dudu was only a search type. Just as the rogue beastman's dagger was about to strike Lu Ling, the three fighters locked in battle all turned toward her at once, calling out her name in alarm. Fortunately, Xing broke free from Old Leopard and arrived at Lu Ling's side in time. From behind, Xing drove a punch straight through the rogue beastman's chest, warning him that his female was not someone anyone could touch. The rogue beastman stared in disbelief. How was this possible? Xing crushed the beastman's heart in his grip. There was nothing impossible. Anyone who dared touch his own had better be prepared to be torn apart. Nearby, Old Leopard was shaken by the sight. He hadn't expected this snake beast to be so powerful that if the fight continued, it would only mean more losses. Better to retreat now and find another chance to wipe them out later. Just as Old Leopard lost focus, the leopard tiger behind him launched an attack. On the other side, after saving Lu Ling, Xing didn't step forward immediately. Instead, he kept his distance and asked if she was hurt. Having been rescued, Lu Ling wanted to rush straight into Shi Ying's arms. But Shi Ying kept retreating, telling her not to come any closer, because his body was stained with blood. Lu Ling froze where she stood, then lunged forward and wrapped herself around Shi Ying anyway. After a moment, she cupped his face and gazed at him deeply, saying she had never thought he was dirty. On the contrary, he looked unbelievably handsome. If someone could live in a beastman world and still remain spotless, it would only be because someone else was carrying the burden for them. Lu Ling was just such a fortunate one that she had a Shi Ying who loved her deeply. And with that thought, she leaned into him on her own initiative. After all, how could someone like Xing not make hearts flutter? And how could anyone not fall for him? Blushing, Lu Ling confessed her feelings to Shi Ying, saying that no matter what he became, she would still like him. A smile spread across Shi Ying's face as he answered with action. He liked her too. After they returned, they would have a baby together. Elsewhere, Old Leopard narrowly dodged the boss's sneak attack and then spotted Shi Ying kissing Lu Ling. Seeing an opening with the troublesome snake beast out of the way, Old Leopard judged it the perfect moment to retreat. Seizing the chance, he shifted forms and lunged toward the supporting female lead. With his target secured, Old Leopard shouted, "Men, don't get bogged down. Fall back." System Dudu warned Lu Ling that the original female lead must not be taken away. Snapped back to the situation by Dudu's alert, Lu Ling refocused. Bao Fu threw a punch and leapt into the fray. Old Leopard reacted swiftly, evading Bao Fu's strike. He taunted Bao Fu, sneering that someone like her thought she could pull off the same sneak attack twice. But the fight now involved more than just a leopard. The young chief came up from behind and clamped a hand around Old Leopard's throat. Lu Yu drove a kick into Old Leopard's stomach. Working together, the three knocked Old Leopard flat to the ground. Seeing this, Old Leopard's subordinates sensed trouble at once, and the enraged Old Leopard wished he could kill them on the spot. Then Shi Ying appeared before Old Leopard, his face dark and cold. Old Leopard froze, not daring to raise his head to meet Shi Ying's eyes. Shi Ying wasted no words and moved to end Old Leopard's life. But the crafty Old Leopard shouted at Bao Fu, "Bao Fu, don't you want to find your mother and learn the truth about your origins?" Bao Fu stood there stunned, unable to believe it. That wasn't her mother already gone? Seeing the ploy work, Old Leopard quietly gathered strength in his fist. Yet in the next instant, a single punch from Shi Ying silenced him forever. Old Leopard collapsed from his injuries. Bao Fu was shaken and asked why Shi Ying hadn't spared his life. He had just said her mother was still alive. Shi Ying apologized to Bao Fu. For everyone's safety, he had no other choice. With that, Shi Ying turned and walked away. Watching Bao Fu's grief, the young chief couldn't help but comfort the pitiful little cat. Bao Fu stared at Old Leopard's corpse in silence. Lu Yu patted Bao Fu on the shoulder, saying he once believed family was the most important thing in the world. But later he realized that even living alone wasn't as unbearable as imagined. So long as one refuses to give up and keeps faith in their heart, what was lost can one day be found again. Bao Fu was deeply moved by those words. Lu Yu continued to reassure her. If her mother was truly still alive, they could search for her together. And if it was all a lie from the rogue beastmen, then they would find a new family together. What did she think? Hearing Lu Yu call her little kitty Bao Fu, the little cat instantly lost her composure. She bared her claws and shouted back, "You're the little kitty. I'm Bao Fu." After dealing with the rogue beastmen, Xi Ying went back to showering Lu Ling with affection. He took Lu Ling's hand and carefully bandaged her wounds. Looking at Lu Ling's injuries, he let out a sigh. Relying on himself alone, he still couldn't protect her properly. Guilt washed over him as he pulled Lu Ling into his arms. Unsure of what to do, if not for Bao Fu and Lu Yu's help this time, he might have lost Lu Ling forever. Xi Ying blamed himself deeply, feeling he wasn't a good enough male and was still too weak to end the beastman world. Strength ruled above all. No matter how well he did, it couldn't change the fact that he failed to protect Lu Ling. Weakness was the original sin. Without the ability to protect one's mate, there was no right to stand by her side. Xi Ying's rate of advancement was too slow. If that pesky little cat ever caught up to him, the consequences would be unthinkable. He made up his mind. He would never let that happen. Lu Ling clasped Xi Ying's fist. If that was the case, then they would work hard together and become better. She smiled and said that for the rest of her life she would be relying on Mr. Xi Ying for guidance. Standing to the side, the young chief felt uneasy. His snake tail, almost impossible to hide, was being with Lu Ling really that joyful? He had to find a way to interrupt them, so he ordered his people to call the two over and hear what the matter was with that fleeing tigress. Before long, everyone gathered together. Interrupted mid-moment, Xi Ying looked visibly displeased. His face dark as he questioned Hu Qiong about her purpose in leading those rogue beastmen here. Hu Qiong explained pitifully that her tribe was 10 days' journey from this place. 15 days earlier, while exploring alone in the wild, she had discovered a salt lake. Overjoyed, she hurried back to share the news with her tribe. But she hadn't realized that even before discovering the salt lake, rogue beastmen with ill intent had already begun following her. They poisoned the tribe, stripping them of their ability to resist. Her parents, siblings, and fellow tribespeople were all killed by their hands. She was the sole survivor. Even so, the rogue beastmen refused to let her go, fearing the news would leak and draw the attention of other tribes, so they hunted her relentlessly for 10 days. Had she not encountered Xi Ying's group, she would likely already be a corpse in the rogue beastman's grasp. Lu Ling couldn't help but sigh. No wonder she was the female lead. This backstory was truly tragic. To repay the life-saving favor, Hu Qiong volunteered to lead the main force to the salt lake. The tribe erupted with excitement. With a salt lake, they could trade with other tribes. It would be a huge deal. Where there was salt, there was hope for development. Before another tribe claimed it, they had to move quickly. The young chief hesitated. After all, they already had dealings with the Flaming tribe, which meant the Salt Lake route wasn't an option. Xi Ying stepped forward with his view. Since the rogue beastmen had already discovered the Salt Lake, they would surely leave most of their people behind to guard it. He bluntly pointed out that Hu Qiong was trying to lure them there for revenge. Besides, their trip to the Flaming tribe wasn't just about trading for salt. It was primarily to attend the Flame Priest's awakening ceremony. For that reason, her proposal wasn't something they could accept. Some in the tribe objected, arguing that while Xi Ying's words made sense, the Salt Lake was extremely valuable, and Hu Qiong's enemies were also their enemies. Standing aside, Lu Ling couldn't help sighing. No wonder she was the original female lead. The beastmen were already speaking up for her. Fortunately, the young chief didn't agree with Hu Qiong's suggestion. To him, ensuring the tribe's awakening into true warriors was the top priority. As for Hu Qiong's proposal, he would consider it later. For now, everyone needed to head to the Flaming tribe first. If Hu Qiong wished, she could travel with them. Lu Ling looked at Hu Qiong nervously. Would she really agree to leave with them just as the story seemed to dictate? The next moment, Hu Qiong patted her chest and declared her stance. She was willing to wait until after the awakening ceremony. With the rogue beastman's leader killed by Xi Ying, the survivors would surely return for revenge, leaving them no choice but to take the initiative and wipe them out at the Salt Lake. Lu Ling's worry came true. Hu Qiong had indeed agreed. As expected, Shi Meng started putting on an act again. Just as the young chief decided to lead everyone onward to the flaming tribe, Shi Meng stopped him, saying that he was now a Tier 4 warrior. If they were to seek revenge at the Salt Lake later, they would definitely need him. But he was injured now and his combat strength had been greatly reduced. He argued that the young chief should have Lu Ling hand over the remaining half of the Beast God Stone to heal his wounds. After all, the Beast God Stone was useless to Lu Ling, yet it could restore his severed arm. And his injury had been sustained while saving Lu Ling. Shouldn't Lu Ling bear at least some responsibility for that? Many beastmen in the tribe spoke up in Shi Meng's defense. Pressing aggressively, Shi Meng stretched out his hand and directly demanded the Beast God Stone from Lu Ling. Lu Ling was left speechless. Xiying stepped in front of Lu Ling, stating that since Shi Meng was injured while protecting his female, he would take responsibility for the injury. But anything except the Beast God Stone could be discussed. However, Shi Meng wanted nothing but the Beast God Stone. Xiying flatly refused. Impossible. Lu Ling would still need the Beast God Stone to become a priestess. At that moment, Bao Fu stepped forward in support, saying that Xiying had failed to protect her sister and thus shared responsibility. She could meet Shi Meng's demands as well, so long as her sister was not pressured. Seeing his sister in distress, Lu Yu clenched his jaw and stepped out too. He likewise believed he had failed to protect her and bore responsibility for Shi Meng's injury. Proud as ever, Lu Yu still turned to explain to Lu Ling that he simply couldn't stand seeing her look pitiful while not knowing how to refuse. He wasn't trying to protect her. The young chief also spoke up, agreeing with Xiying. Once Lu Ling became a priestess, there would still be a chance to heal Shi Meng's arm. But if Lu Ling lost the Beast God Stone, it would be difficult for her to advance further, wouldn't it? If compensation was needed, he could make up for it on Lu Ling's behalf. The crowd began discussing among themselves, and this time most of them stood with Xiying. The Beast God Stone held very little energy now. If it were given to Shi Meng, the tribe would lose a priestess with tremendous potential. Shi Meng found himself isolated, with no one speaking up for him. He clenched his teeth, resentment burning in his heart. He had sacrificed so much for Lu Ling, yet she didn't even offer the Beast God Stone herself. Instead, she joined the others in condemning him. Shi Meng stared at Lu Ling with hatred, his thoughts spiraling. He was convinced she was deliberately taking revenge on him. If his arm truly never recovered and he became useless, he would make Lu Ling taste what it meant to live in misery. Suddenly, Lu Ling drew a bamboo flute from behind her and told everyone that the journey to the Salt Lake would bring unknown dangers. The Beast God Stone was their final safeguard, so she couldn't give it to Shi Meng. However, his injury had indeed been caused by her. If he didn't mind, she could first use a priestess's healing art to stabilize his wounds. Shi Meng never expected that Lu Ling would still be willing to treat him. Lu Ling knew clearly that Shi Meng's intentions when saving her hadn't been pure. But his injury was real and she didn't want to owe him this debt. No matter what, she would find a way to make his arm grow back. A gentle melody drifted through the air. Under Lu Ling's healing, Shi Meng's wounds slowly began to close. Even his emotions settled into an unprecedented calm. In that moment, he realized how beautiful Lu Ling truly was. The other beastmen were also moved by Lu Ling's kindness. Even Hu Qiong looked at her with newfound respect. After finishing the flute melody, Lu Ling remarked that since Shi Meng's injuries were no longer serious, she was about to comfort him when weakness overtook her and she collapsed the next second. Xiying reacted in time, catching Lu Ling and pulling her into his arms. Everyone gathered around her anxiously. Xiying laid Lu Ling down and checked her condition, only to discover that all the energy within her body had been completely drained. Although Lu Ling possessed priestess talent, she still hadn't learned how to draw upon the Beast God's power. The healing spell she used on Shi Meng had been cast by forcibly overexerting her own body. After hearing the young chief's explanation, guilt arose in Shi Meng's heart. He was already crippled and had treated Lu Ling so terribly, yet she still risked her life to heal him. Did that mean Lu Ling still cared for him? Exhausted after using the healing art, Lu Ling lay weakly on the ground. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Dudu. Leaning against the tree, she thought she had merely slept too long. Dudu told her that she hadn't fallen asleep at all. She had fainted. While Lu Ling rested, Xiying went out hunting to replenish her strength. Ever since Lu Ling collapsed, Shi Meng's behavior began to grow strange. Not only had his temperament changed, he kept muttering Lu Ling's name under his breath. Dudu warned Lu Ling to be careful around Shermeng. It felt as though he had begun harboring dangerous intentions toward her. Lu Ling looked toward Hu Qiong, who was scolding Shermeng in the distance. Compared to Shermeng, she felt Hu Qiong was the real source of her unease. After all, the so-called original female lead hadn't followed the novel's plot and fallen for Xiying. According to the original story, Xiying and Hu Qiong should have been separated during the fight, and while caring for Hu Qiong afterward, he would develop feelings and fall in love at first sight. Hearing this, Dudu finally revealed the truth. It was simple. The so-called original female lead wasn't actually the true protagonist, and Lu Ling might not be an outsider to this world at all. Lu Ling was stunned. She had considered countless explanations, yet never imagined that she herself might belong to this world. She grabbed Dudu, trying to ask more, but Dudu broke free, leaving only a warning, "I can't say any more," before disappearing. Lu Ling stood there in a daze for a long while. If what Dudu said was true, then what were her current parents and friends? Yet if she truly came from the modern world, how could her drastic change after the tribe lost its priestess be explained? Almost as if she had become a different person. Most of all, what was the source of that overwhelming sense of déjà vu she felt when seeing them? Xiying returned from hunting and found that Lu Ling was already awake, but he hurried to the tree to check on her. Lu Ling felt the tremor in Xiying's fingertips as he touched her face. The fear of nearly losing her was something he never wanted to experience again. In that moment, Xiying held Lu Ling tightly, vowing that no matter who it was for, he would never let her risk her life again. If Lu Ling died, he wouldn't go on living either. Lu Ling was once again moved by Xiying's sincerity. She leaned close to him, a pink, bubble-like atmosphere surrounding the two of them. Looking straight into Xiying's eyes, Lu Ling said she only wished for both of them to live well. Xiying pulled her closer with a domineering edge and said in a low voice, "Lu Ling, don't even think about escaping my grasp." Xiying and Lu Ling continued shamelessly showering each other with affection. Nearby, Bao Hu and the young chief suddenly found the meat in their hands far less appetizing. The two complained that Xiying's grilling skills were really nothing special, saying it wasn't even as good as their own. The meat was burnt. How was anyone supposed to eat that? Yet the drumstick Xiying handed to Lu Ling was crispy on the outside and tender inside. Lu Ling opened her mouth eagerly and took a big bite, only to realize the taste wasn't as good as she'd imagined. Without spices or salt to mask it, the raw meat smell and metallic taste of blood came through immediately. Xiying stood up and told Lu Ling that the team had run out of salt, and they were still half a day away from the flaming tribe. Warriors could burn their strength to boost their running speed tenfold. He was about to go fetch salt for Lu Ling when Lu Yu stepped in to stop him, saying there was no need. Lu Yu pulled out a small pouch of salt and told Lu Ling he'd recently developed a salt allergy and was planning to throw it away anyway. Now it wouldn't go to waste. When Lu Ling learned that Lu Yu was allergic to salt, he turned his face away stubbornly and said not to worry about him. If she didn't want it, he'd just throw it away. Lu Ling already understood what he meant and pushed the salt back into Lu Yu's arms. Mimicking his tone, she said she thought he came to make peace, not to treat her like a trash bin. If that was the case, he could just throw the salt away. She didn't want it either. Lu Yu panicked immediately. Why wouldn't she want it? Did refusing to reconcile mean she couldn't accept his things? The truth was, he was just worried that his foolish older sister wasn't living well. That was why he had gone out of his way to gather what Lu Ling needed and bring it to her. Even if they didn't reconcile, she could still accept a younger brother's protection and gifts. He didn't need anything in return. She couldn't even take advantage of that. Lu Ling really was an idiot. Hearing this, Lu Ling couldn't help laughing out loud. Lu Yu couldn't understand why this idiot Lu Ling was still laughing. Smiling softly, Lu Ling looked at this tsundere brother and said that if this idiot Lu Ling wanted to make up with him, would he still despise her? After all, she wouldn't accept gifts from strangers of unknown origin. Lu Yu was in disbelief that Lu Ling had taken the initiative to reconcile, especially when he had hurt her so deeply before, saying such cruel things. Lu Ling asked Lu Yu to lower his head and gently patted it, softly comforting him to let the past stay in the past. As long as they could return to how they used to be in the future, that would be enough. Just don't call her an idiot anymore. Remember to call her sister. Got it? Lu Yu blushed and obediently called her sister. Shermeng once again fell into a daze over Lu Ling. Her slender waist and long legs held his gaze, and he couldn't look away. Nearby, the young chief tried to ease the awkwardness by pretending to chat with Bao Li of the Flaming Tribe. After some bargaining, the young chief successfully secured lodging in Bao Li's empty house at the price of 3 portions of meat for 1 piece of beast hide. Tomorrow would be the day of the awakening ceremony. Bao Li reminded everyone to rest well and suggested they take the time to look around the tribe's marketplace. Lu Ling silently repeated Bao Li's name to herself, thinking that he truly lived up to being a landlord. Even his name sounded impressive. The thought made Lu Ling laugh softly. Shi Meng caught the moment perfectly. To him, every smile and subtle expression of Lu Ling was breathtaking, and every beat of his heart seemed to be for her alone. Regret flooded Shi Meng's mind. He realized just how deeply he liked her, that if only he had understood his feelings sooner. If he had accepted her confession back then, the male standing by her side now might have been him. The females of the Flaming Tribe noticed Shi Meng's severed arm and mocked him mercilessly. Calling him a useless cripple, they scoffed at his dream of joining the awakening ceremony. With an arm gone, he was worse off than a female. If it were them, they would have chosen death long ago. Hearing those words, Shi Meng flew into a rage, power gathering in his palm as he shouted back, warning them that he was no cripple. At that moment, a hand suddenly grabbed him by the collar. A cold voice snapped that a mere Tier 3 warrior dared to threaten his female. Only then did Shi Meng realize that after losing his arm, his strength had plummeted as well. The male beastman slammed Shi Meng hard into the ground, warning him that if he was trash, he should act like it. And if he dared provoke his female again, there would be no mercy. Shi Meng was filled with resentment that he refused to believe he was useless, that if not for saving Lu Ling, he would never have ended up like this. As long as Lu Ling gave him the Beast God Stone, he could regain his power and win back her affection. The desperate hunger in Shi Meng's eyes was seen clearly by Hu Qiong. She mocked him coldly, saying that if she were him, she would never look at Lu Ling that way. Shi Meng snapped back angrily, accusing Hu Qiong of being the ill-omened outsider who had led the rogue beastmen here. In Hu Qiong's eyes, the way Shi Meng looked at Lu Ling was that of a greedy schemer. She was almost certain he was plotting how to exploit Lu Ling again. Fighting wasn't his strength, but arguing certainly was. Shi Meng shouted in defense that she knew nothing. This was his love, that if he didn't become stronger, how could Lu Ling ever like him? Hu Qiong shot back mercilessly that his so-called love was nothing but exploitation, using Lu Ling's tolerance to force her to sacrifice her own interests for him. If that was love, then it was nothing but selfishness. Shi Meng answered seriously, saying that wasn't love supposed to be like this. Hu Qiong patiently explained that love was not about taking, but about giving. About devotion and even sacrifice. That if he didn't even know how to love someone, then he had no right to have Lu Ling. Hu Qiong added coldly that if he truly wanted Lu Ling's affection, he should trade sincerity for sincerity. In the Beastman world, strength ruled all, and the weak would be mocked and trampled no matter what they did. On the second day after arriving at the Flaming Tribe, everyone who had paid rent was given lunch. Yet when everyone else received a full bowl of food, Shi Meng was handed only half a bowl. He felt deeply wronged and demanded to know why his portion was so small. The beastman distributing the food raised his ladle and mocked him, because he was disabled. Disabled beastmen weren't qualified to eat meat. That was their rule. In the beastman world, food was the most vital resource. Someone like him who contributed nothing to the tribe didn't deserve more. He was told to get lost and stop blocking the way. Only then did Shi Meng realize how serious the situation was. With no contribution, his food rations would only keep shrinking. A chilling thought crossed his mind. Would he end up like the old beastmen in the tribe, slowly starving to death? Shi Meng glanced toward Lu Ling, thinking that the Flaming Tribe was so stingy that she probably couldn't eat her fill either. After hesitating for a moment, he finally walked toward her with unusual resolve. Sure enough, the food in Lu Ling's bowl was scarce as well. Awkwardly, Shi Meng offered his half bowl of food to her. Before he could say a word, Xing arrived with a whole wild chicken, rich in aroma and color, stopping in front of Lu Ling. Bao Hu and Lu Yu also stepped forward, each carrying lean cuts from different parts, scrambling to offer them to Lu Ling and claim credit. Lu Ling hesitated, then broke down and shouted that it was enough. The meat was too much, she really couldn't eat anymore. The three of them laughed so hard they could barely stop, telling her it was fine and that they liked her a little chubby anyway. Shi Meng stood there in silence, suddenly realizing that he seemed to be the unnecessary one. Lu Ling noticed something off about his expression and asked again whether he had wanted to say something earlier. Feeling deeply humiliated, Shi Meng turned away and replied coldly that it was nothing. Seeing that he didn't want to talk, Lu Ling, staying true to her warm nature, didn't press further and instead invited him to eat with them. She explained that the barbecue seasoning was something she had studied for a long time before recreating, and that it tasted really good. Shi Meng hadn't expected her to share food with him at all, and his eyes welled up with emotion. Yet while Lu Ling waited for his response, Shi Meng felt utterly ashamed that he turned and refused her invitation, admitting to himself that Hu Qiong was right. Compared to Lu Ling, he was petty and despicable, and someone like him didn't deserve her. Watching Shi Meng leave, the system Dudu mocked him with clear disdain. Only realizing his mistakes now. Hurt her once, feel good for a moment, then regret it forever. A classic self-destruction arc. Lu Ling was confused and asked what that meant, wondering if Shi Meng was the type who hurt someone first and regretted it later. No sooner had Shi Meng left than Lu Ling was knocked to the ground. Someone nearby cursed loudly, sneering that they looked down on her. Her mate was trash, so she must be trash too. The sudden incident caught Shi Ying and the other two completely off guard. Fortunately, Hu Qiong caught Lu Ling in time. Feeling how light the female in her arms was, she knew a fall like that could have ended badly. Hu Qiong gently helped Lu Ling steady herself and asked with concern whether she was hurt. Lu Ling shyly turned her head away and stammered that she was fine, thanking her. Shi Ying suddenly pulled Lu Ling back from Hu Qiong's hands. For some reason, the way Hu Qiong looked at Lu Ling made him deeply uncomfortable. With a cold tone, he questioned why Hu Qiong was there and asked whether the Salt Lake route map assigned by the young chief had been finished. Lu Ling looked at Shi Ying pleadingly, asking him not to treat Hu Qiong that way. After all, she had just helped her. Lu Ling turned back to thank Hu Qiong again, who replied that it was nothing more than a simple favor and didn't require thanks. In Hu Qiong's eyes, she hadn't misjudged her at all. This small female was polite and considerate. Compared to the rude and unreasonable male beside her, she found herself liking Lu Ling far more. The female who had knocked Lu Ling over earlier hurriedly bowed and apologized. At that moment, a flamboyantly dressed female strode over from a distance. Her name was Hu Yen, the leading figure of the Salt Lake tribe. Hu Yen responded coldly, saying that an apology was indeed necessary, but the apology should be directed at her, not Lu Ling. She mocked the female for having such bad luck, stuck with a useless mate who wore nothing but tattered hides and still dared to insult her new dress. With that, Hu Yen ordered her followers to seize the female and teach her a lesson. Terrified, the helpless female's legs gave out as she begged Hu Yen not to do it. Lu Ling stepped in front of the female to shield her. Hu Yen warned Lu Ling coldly not to cause trouble, reminding her that it was that female who had nearly made her fall. Lu Ling rejected Hu Yan's claim outright. She couldn't stand people abusing their power. It was nothing more than thinking the dress looked bad. In Lu Ling's eyes, the female hadn't done anything wrong. The outfit itself was simply painful to look at. Snubbed once again, Hu Yan flared up and swung her arm, about to slap Lu Ling. Lu Yu grabbed Hu Yan's arm and warned her that if she dared lay a hand on Lu Ling, she would never see another sunrise. Bao Fu echoed him from the side, saying he'd join in as well. Seeing the three males standing beside Lu Ling, none of whom looked easy to deal with, a surge of jealousy flooded Hu Yan's heart. Why did this female deserve so much protection? Her thoughts twisted further as she convinced herself that Lu Ling was just jealous of the water silk she'd received from her mate and was deliberately stirring trouble. Lu Ling was left speechless by Hu Yan's bizarre line of thinking. Growing more self-satisfied by the second, Hu Yan began showing off her dress, claiming that other females were just sour grapes. As Hu Yan kept talking, Shi Ying finally lost patience. He pulled out a large sack he carried with him and laid a piece of water silk right in front of her. Hu Yan's expression changed instantly. Lu Ling had water silk too, and it was clearly finer and more beautiful than hers. With his scent growing more pronounced, Shi Ying said calmly that it was merely a fourth-tier snake beast's water silk and nothing worth envying. He then told Lu Ling that the fifth-tier water silk was a surprise he had specially arranged for her. He asked her to try it on and see if she liked it. He wanted to see what she would look like wearing it when she became his mate. Dressed that way, she would be marked with his presence from head to toe, and even the atmosphere around them would noticeably warm. Bao Fu mocked Hu Yan from the side, saying that what she was showing off was nothing more than something Lu Ling didn't even want. and that what they could give Lu Ling far surpassed anything Hu Yan possessed. Hu Yan was left speechless and fled in disgrace with her followers. Deeply resentful, she convinced herself that any female protected by 3 males like that had to be despicable. She swore silently that during the awakening ceremony that afternoon, she would make them pay tenfold. On the day of the awakening ritual, Lu Ling appeared dressed in elegant ceremonial attire. She looked especially excited, mainly because Shi Ying was wearing matching clothes with her. At that moment, Lu Ling finally understood why her friends were obsessed with collecting boyfriend scents. The strong scent of Shi Ying clinging to the outfit made her feel constantly surrounded by him. That masculine presence made her heart race and her limbs feel weak, and her thoughts started to wander. She quickly shook her head to clear her imagination and changed the subject with a faint blush. Noticing the heavy tribal faith reflected in the decorations, she asked whether this was the place where the awakening ritual would be held. Shi Ying pointed toward the ritual platform ahead. He explained that once the ceremony began, the tribal priest would stand there to invoke the blessing of the beast god. Any beastman with warrior potential would awaken as a warrior under that blessing. At that moment, Lu Yu called out to Lu Ling from behind. He asked her to lower her head, saying he had something to give her. Lu Yu took out a flower wreath from behind and gently placed it on Lu Ling's head. Today was the crucial moment for him to awaken his warrior talent. He wanted to become a warrior. He muttered softly that only then would he have enough strength to protect his sister. Lu Ling playfully tugged on Lu Yu's ear and praised him, saying he was amazing. Lu Yu's face instantly turned red and he covered his burning cheeks before running off shyly. The system Dudu was puzzled. How could such a pure-hearted young deer beast be embarrassed that badly? After calming down, Lu Yu went to line up at the entrance to the ritual grounds. Just as he was about to enter, the token in his hand was suddenly snatched away. Holding Lu Yu's token, the newcomer coldly stated that this male had already reached adulthood and was over the age limit, thus disqualified from the awakening ceremony. Furious, Lu Yu shouted at the snake beast, demanding how that was possible. Even after coming of age, one was still allowed to participate within a year. This was the established rule. The snake beast responded harshly that the rules had changed. At that moment, Lu Ling and the young chief also arrived to line up and asked Lu Yu what had happened. Lu Yu explained the situation to them, and upon hearing it, the young chief immediately questioned the snake beast, stating that no such rule had been mentioned when he negotiated with the tribal chief before. The snake beast immediately made up an excuse, claiming that there were too many participants and that the tribe needed to eliminate those with the least chance of awakening. Hu Yan stepped up beside him and mocked Lu Yu, saying that as the oldest among them, it was only natural for him to be cut. Seeing Hu Yan standing next to the snake beast, Lu Ling instantly realized that their relationship was far from ordinary. The system Dudu recognized her as well and couldn't help remarking that she was the same female who had bullied Lu Ling earlier that morning. The young chief knew very well that Lu Yu was one of the strongest fighters in the tribe, that if he awakened successfully, he would soon become one of the tribe's most powerful warriors, and no matter what, they had to find a way to let him participate. The young chief offered even more supplies as compensation in exchange for a slot in the awakening ceremony, asking if that would finally be acceptable. The snake beast refused on the spot, stating coldly that it was impossible. If it was Lu Yu, then absolutely not. As the young chief was about to increase the offer tenfold, Lu Ling tugged at his sleeve to stop him. Lu Ling said calmly that it was enough. And no matter how much they offered, the answer would be the same. Their target had been her from the very beginning. Hu Yan leaned close to Lu Ling's ear and whispered that Lu Ling wasn't stupid at all. Her mate was the most powerful elder in the tribe aside from the priest elders. She deliberately brought up Lu Yu, sneering as she asked whether that deer beast was her younger brother. Watching him become a useless male with no warrior potential should feel pretty good. Since Lu Ling dared to offend her, she'd better be ready to pay the price. Lu Ling hadn't expected this woman to be so utterly despicable. The system Dudu couldn't hold back, circling the flames and hurling insults, calling Hu Yan vicious and shameless for relying on underhanded tricks, daring her to face things head-on instead. Lu Ling felt a headache coming on. She hadn't realized Hu Yan's influence ran this deep, but no matter what, she couldn't just stand by and watch her brother lose his chance to take part in the awakening ceremony.